Hey everybody, thanks for listening to Untitled Car Project, show 49. Thanks for being a return listener, and if it's your first time, thanks for being here.
Loyal welcome.
Yes, the loyal listeners, please hit follow on the podcast, share it with your friends if you can as well. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We haven't been posting a whole lot lately, but, you know, randomly here and there it comes and goes.
What are you talking about? We got the major video that just went up.
Major 30-second video that got cut off in the middle.
Oh. Did?
Yep.
Why? What?
I don't know. It only played half of it.
Are you talking about in the shorts? Yeah, it only played... No, it plays the whole thing. Anyways. Welcome to our channel.
Welcome to the show. Did I already say that? Show 49?
Yeah.
All right.
You didn't say your name, though.
I hadn't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
You want to start over?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
No, not really. Let's just fucking run it.
Let's just go. All right. So much fun. If you want to reach out to us, untitledcarproject@gmail.com, or hit us up on the messenger, or there's some kind of instant messaging on Instagram, something like
spams.
that. Send us a text. See what you're up to. If you have an interesting car project as well, reach out. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's hear
Get
it.
you on the show. Love to talk about project stuff.
I'm going to give this joke one more try.
Alrighty.
I'm so good at fixing things. My motto is, if it's broken, I'll still fix it.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Wow.
Silence is deafening.
Anyways.
I think this whole show is a fail so far.
All right.
We're just dying here. Okay, this week on the show, our guest left us in the lurch at the last minute.
Got sick.
Called in sick. You know you're not allowed to do that when you're a guest on a show, is call in sick.
Yeah.
Dang it. All right, so we had one lined up, and here we are without one. That's all right. We're going to talk about motor builder stuff. We're going to talk about our car histories. We're going to talk about product innovations for project cars.
Okay.
That is a late addition, so we're just going to wing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
Perfect.
I'm Rob Spring.
Jeremy Molt.
I'm Grant Gonzalez.
Thanks, guys. Let's see. Let's get into it. I wanted to talk about motor builder stuff because I finally got a hold of my motor builder.
Woo!
Not really.
No.
Yeah, no, he's out.
It's an oof. Oh, he's
So we're going to make it ourselves?
No,
What are
he's
you
got to
even
find a
talking
new
about?
guy.
I just told you I can fix anything.
No.
Not even close.
No.
Yeah, so he's out. Doesn't want to do it.
Did you give a reason?
Yeah, it's personal to him, though, so I'll just let that go.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got to find a new one.
Okay.
Bummer.
And I kind of was like, all right, I've done a little research, Pacific Northwest. Haven't really... I mean, I found one possibility, but I want some references before I...
Are you
reach out
looking
to
up in
anybody.
Auburn, Washington by chance?
I looked kind of... Just a general search at the moment.
Yeah.
Starting local, right? Starting in the Portland area. But I would take recommendations for the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Anybody that may know somebody that's a good builder. But on that topic, though, I want to know from you guys what you think makes a good builder and what inspires confidence for you to take your motor to somebody. Because this is a big investment.
Yeah.
This is not something I want to take out on a track day and throw parts through the block. You know what I mean?
It's thousands of dollars.
It's not thousands
Many,
of
many
dollars.
thousands.
It's also like you're putting your life on the line for that. When you're at 100-something miles an hour on the straightaway, you want to make sure you're not throwing a rod at the side of it.
Yeah, I mean, shit happens, right?
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. There's safety involved, but also the thousands and thousands of dollars that you're investing
And hours.
and thousands and
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you probably...
it's the whole thing, right? But
Yeah. And you're probably looking for somebody specialized in LSs, right?
that would be ideal, right?
Yeah.
You want somebody that knows how to build the motor that you are interested in,
Right.
whether that's a Honda or a Toyota or an LS or a Ford motor if you happen to go down that road.
Right. And honestly, I would want somebody that has done thousands and thousands of hours of
Exactly.
research,
Well-
work on the motors.
I don't want my motor being the first one.
No, for sure. For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I want somebody that knows what they're doing and has proven that. And they have customers say, yeah, they did an awesome job on my motor and it's still running strong and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. On that, you don't want them to be so backed up that you can't get it this year, right?
That too.
Yeah,
Yeah, because honestly, the last one took over a year to get.
right.
Really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
So, yeah. What do you?
One of my vehicles that we'll be talking about later,
Okay.
I had to take the motor in and have it rebuilt because, well, we had some issues.
Yeah.
And it was months before I got it back.
Yeah. I don't mind months. I'm okay with months.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with the year.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I took it in. I think it was fall. So heading into the busy season for him. And I ended up he did prep the motor and all that stuff, honed it, honed it. Did the crankshaft and all that stuff, did all the measurements, got the right parts for it, and didn't put it together.
Oh, just let it sit at that point. Got
Yeah.
sidetracked with something else.
Well-
Found some squirrels to chase.
Lots of
Is his name Grant?
Yay.
No, Dale Green, DG Machine in Auburn, Washington. They do a lot of drag racing stuff. For
Well, that would be
PIR.
something for my particular interest. Somebody that builds race motors.
right.
You know, something, you know, they know how to get a motor to turn high RPM without coming apart.
Yes,
That kind of, you know, it's not just a street motor.
right.
So,
Yeah,
what about, yeah.
yeah. So he prepped it for me, but
Yeah.
I called him one day and I'm like, I worked right up the road from him at the time, and I'm like, hey, how long till we get this back? And he's like, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be months before I can get to it. I've got a pile of whatever motors that are getting done before you. I'm like, cool, I can come pick it up.
Get it. Yep.
And the work that he was going to do, it wasn't really worth it to him because it was only $125 worth of work putting it back together.
Oh, yeah, that one's going to sit on the back shelf. But at the same time, it's like, slap that thing together and get her done. Get it out of the shop.
Yeah. But he had 100 of those in line before me that were ready to do too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I went and picked it up and put it together that weekend and fired it up and sold it.
So, somebody else's problem.
When it comes to engine builders, what's the most important thing to you guys? Like you said, and I'm asking you guys specifically, is it their ability to know what parts need to go in there and gather it, or are you more interested in the quality of machining they can do, or what needs to be done to it?
Yes.
Quality of the build. I mean, yes, it's all together. You know, I want that background knowledge. Like the guy I used before, he's a race engine builder. That's what he does. He builds high performance stuff. He knows what to use, how to put it together, how to make a good motor. That's what I'm interested in. You know, I'm interested in that experience. Somebody that knows this, that's not guessing. You know, they've done this a bunch of times. They are aware of the good stuff, the bad stuff, what to do, what to stay away from. You know,
So when you're
paying for experience.
When you approach a builder, then why would you bring them any parts then, other than your block?
Well, because I have parts.
I get that. But
Yes.
if you're going by someone's experience, they'll be like, you don't want to buy these heads. Not going to make enough power. Or why would you buy, say these rods?
Builder the particular case I'm looking for, I already have high performance parts that I want put on the motor, but the rest of the motor needs gone through.
Okay.
You know, I want the crank checked. I want the bearings, rods, new pistons, rings, honed cylinders. You know, I need that part done.
You need to have a machinist who's able to adapt and then say, okay, with what I've gotten, this is what will make the best combo.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. However you want to spin that. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what's important to me, though. Like somebody that here's what I want from it. How's the best way to get there, right? Here's what I have. Here's what I've purchased already. Let's build something. So that's what I'm looking for. But what to you is the best? What would you look for? I mean, he's just got a Mustang, so he's going to take it down to Joe in his garage and just be like, "Hey, can you?"
He's going to go to
I've had
pick and pull a new motor.
Right?
Yeah, so because I've never pulled the trigger on a machine shop. I've gone to a few machine shops, talked to guys, and getting to that point. Both with other vehicles. I've done it once with a motor, but we didn't really just replace a single cylinder. Nothing crazy. But what I look for to the shop is the first thing that'll tell me if a shop for me that's personally good is going to be the person I talk to as soon as I walk in the door. If I'm talking to the person who's going to be building the engine and whatnot, I'm going to know how they're going to communicate, how detailed they're going to go in. A lot of the vibe check, essentially, is the first thing that's got to pass. If I have a guy who's not going to give me time of day or just say...
So what if you go into a shop and you're talking to Jessica at the front counter and she doesn't know anything? You said the first person you...
No, yeah, I get you on that. I've never had that happen because any machine shop I've gone to is pretty much the guys who are working on the motors.
All right. Well, I was kidding. But so if you go in and you're talking to a guy and you get a good vibe from it and that kind of stuff, but then later on you read the reviews of the shop and they're not good, then what do you do?
Well, I would have read the reviews before I went there.
Just saying maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a buddy said, hey, go here.
Yeah.
But maybe he's having a Toyota motor built, not a LS, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what I'd be looking for is I would probably look for somebody that specializes in the motor type I was going in.
Yeah, I do think that's important.
I guess if I went that kind of route, it would be what the first phone call looks like. I'm not going to give someone blindly money. I'm going to come up with a plan with them before we just do anything else with it.
Yeah.
And they start going through that plan, great. Because they're going to convince me this is the best for a motor, this is the best way to do it, what are we going to do it, etc. I need to do this. And if they need to call to update, say, hey, something changes plan, cool. Now, if they do that without my knowledge, and they say, and it doesn't work out great, that's kind of on my end then. Because it's like I put a lot of trust in this guy I'm developing a relationship with. Because essentially, building an engine is a very intimate thing for any car builder.
There is a good chance, though, that if you find a big motor builder, that you're going to hit the Jessica at the front counter, and that's who's you're going to be talking to, because most of the good engine builders are in the shop doing the engines,
building a motor.
Yeah.
You're not talking to the actual builder now, and that's going to be a pretty big shop if you actually have somebody at the front counter. I agree with Grant to an extent. You're talking to a random shop guy or whatever. And do you really want that big of a motor builder where they've got so many people that, you're not actually talking to the builder. They're cranking out 10 motors a week, there's some drawbacks to that too.
Yeah.
Because I think quality suffers.
The other positive thing about talking to that person who's building the engine, as well as, say, a smaller company. Something goes wrong, you can get a hold of that guy.
I agree.
It's more easier to communicate rather than be like, oh, let me go get my supervisor. We'll have them say, and then I'll let you know if you can talk to one of our techs.
I would prefer probably to go to an independent builder that does, 4 or 5 motors a year.
Yeah.
Rather than a big shop that has, 6 bays and they've got cars on every one of them and they're redoing all this stuff. I would rather go to the guy that takes his time, quote unquote, obviously you don't want to wait forever, but who's actually, checking every little detail of that motor, because he doesn't want it leaving his shop and coming apart.
Yep.
Where that big shop, they're just they've got overhead. They're trying to crank those motors out, right? Maybe some of the fine details don't really get as much attention as they should. So, I don't know. My opinion, maybe a little smaller company is a better way to go.
I think so too.
Yeah. But it's hard to find.
Yeah, it would be hard to find a company that's small anymore.
I think, well, when it comes
you can.
Yeah.
When it comes to engine building, I feel like if you could find a machine shop to do what you need to do it, if they'll build you a long block, great. But if not, you could build it yourself. Go that route. But at the same time, I'm not thinking on a scale where it's like needs an engine that's so many thousands over with timing just right and blah blah. Their experience and knowledge going towards that. I'm thinking of like, how am I going to refresh this engine? Maybe make a little more power on top of that. What have I done my research to help with this guy and communicate? Let's build something together.
So I'm going to ask you this then. Since you said you were going to build your long block.
Yeah.
You got all the tools for that?
Building a long block? Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You've got an indicator dial. You've got a 1 and 2 inch and 3 inch.
Yeah, I'm not doing any of that. No, it should be everything is ready to go put in.
Before you put it together,
you
have to do micrometer checks, an inside micrometer check for your
gotta do any of
main
that.
bearings.
There's no way I'm doing
That's why
that.
he has a machinist.
Shop. Yeah. If I'm spending time for that, then
hold on. There's a misunderstanding right here.
Okay. Yes.
He's putting together he's not putting together. He's gathering the long block parts. giving it to the machine shop. This is what I want to do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you've got a block, you've got the
Yes.
crank, you've got
Cams.
your cam, you've got your pistons, your rings, all that stuff, and you're going to have him put it together.
No, I'm going to have him machine it and do whatever it needs to do. So once it's done,
Okay,
comes back to my shop and I'm like, okay, so pistons are all done, bore's already all done. Let's start putting it together. I can start torquing everything to spec.
okay. So if your machine,
Yeah.
if your machine shop is a good machine shop, really good machine
They'll
shop,
build
you
you a long
trust them,
block.
I would say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
However, if he's going to hand you back a block that's been polished and is ready to go, there is 100% chance I don't trust anybody enough that I'm not going to measure that stuff for myself.
What'd you
Don't look at me. I'm having them put it together. I'm not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If they're putting it together, they should be measuring all this stuff
It's-
when they're doing it. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes for me personally. If I'm going to shop, either A, I'm trusting them enough to do their job well because they passed the vibe check, they've passed reviews, we've talked about this in the process, they've informed me on everything that it's going to be done right, and either A, I'll build the long block and everything else that they've gathered all those parts put together, or B, if I don't got time and they have it in their schedule to, I'll have them build it.
Yeah.
See, I'm
That's-
with Rob. I
want it
will pay
assembled.
somebody to build it.
It-
Yeah, I want it assembled. I want to bring it back to my place and put it in the car.
Yeah.
But I guess the other reason is why I would not have someone build it and I would build it is depending on time. If someone's out a year or half a year, just get the machining done. If that takes like a month, and then I'll just start going together, put it through. Because I'm very detailed when it comes to my work on that one. And even if it takes me, say, 6 months, that provides me a year, and anything I find along that way, I can stop, be like, hey, let's take us back, get this refreshed, whatever. You know?
Yeah. See, here's my problem with that. I had a guy do that. I took everything back to my house and I put it together. And I did it right. However, I noticed when I was pulling the main bearings and stuff out of the boxes had not been opened.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem. That means nothing had been measured. Nothing had been put together and actually tested. So the theory is good, but if you don't have all the tools to do it, I would leave that motor there and let them do it.
Well, you have that, or if you come back and you know it's not, just send it back. Be like, hey, why wasn't this taken care of? I mean, if you pay
now
for
you're-
a service that you've talked about and said, I need this and this and this
Well-
and this done.
Not always is the measuring part of the service. That's part of the putting it together.
Yeah.
That's part of the, him going through and measuring and putting everything together. Yeah, he's measured, bought your pistons and rings so that they were supposed to fit. But that doesn't mean he pulled them out of the box and verified. It means he didn't have enough time to put that motor together. Here's your pile of parts. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely comes down to trusting your builder.
Yeah.
And I have the ability and all that to put it all together. Don't want to.
Yeah.
I want
That's fair.
the builder to do it because, like you said, you got to mic everything and get it. It's all got to match.
Yeah.
And preferred, I want it balanced. I don't want, I don't want pistons that don't weigh the same, and I want a good race motor. This is going to turn some high RPM. I don't want it freaking coming apart.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I want everything checked. So, anyway, that's what I had. He can't do it. Now I got to find somebody else.
So
finding one that is trusted is an issue.
Here's a question to ask you guys.
It's going to be a time consuming.
When is it worth to then, instead of taking a block to an end to a machine shop and all that, getting all the machining done and blah, blah, rather than just buying a crate motor? And I'm saying not just something you get factory. I mean, saying something already done that meets your specifications.
So-
Whether if there was a LS block or
No, that's a valid thought. And I know that some people do that, on their project cars. They're buying an LS or they're buying a 383 stroker or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy one that's ready to go if that's in your budget, right? In my case, it's not because you can't get that block anymore. And the cost, I mean, I've seen a couple out there. The cost is almost a wash.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Yeah,
know.
and-
that is valid for some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
aspects.
my experience, for example, is with Liger with her 4.6. Okay, I have gone back and forth on many engine swaps, but more importantly, I've gone on the idea of, am I going to take this 281 small block Ford motor, and am I going to make it into a 302 or a stroker motor, make power of it, send it to machine shop, and is that going to be more cost effective than, say, swap a 5.0 into it?
Right.
Or hell, keep it the same and just throw a supercharger onto it, and
Yeah.
that'll give me the performance I need.
No, that's valid concerns, valid thoughts. You have to weigh all that. What are the pros and cons? What is the cost difference and all of that stuff? Absolutely, you have to think about that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, that's not the road I'm going down, because I bought all these heads and performance cam and all this other stuff that I want put in the motor. It's been waiting to go in for 2 years. One thing leads to another, and it's still not done.
Okay.
Right.
So, I've got parts that I want to use, and I want the rest of it refreshed while I do it. So I'm already halfway down this path, right?
Yeah.
So,
You're already thousands into it.
you're
You're
going
gonna
to
keep
tens of
going.
thousands into
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then what kind of journey or steps are you going to take next to find a machine shop? Are you going to just start going on reviews? Are you going to go by friends, what they say? Are you going to go physically and visit them and see
all
if
of those
live
things.
Yeah.
check?
All of those
All of
things.
those
It
things.
starts by looking around and seeing the names of shops that actually advertise, because there's always those ones that don't, like my previous builder. You would not find them. You will not find them on a Google search. You will
Yeah.
not find this person, right? So I'll look for the ones that actually have something out there, and I'll look at their reviews and I'll take note. All right, I've written a couple of down. I'll take note. I'll ask around about them. But while I'm doing that, I will talk to all my race car friends. Who do you use? Who do you use? Where do you go? Where did you get your motor done? All of those things, because I trust those people. The people I race with, they've had a motor done. Who did you use?
Yeah.
Is it good? Do you trust them? How long did it take? So it'll probably be a recommendation,
Yeah.
and then I'll reach out to that person and see what their timelines are, and
Feel them out a little
feel
bit.
them out. See, we'll go from there.
So here's a question to ask you guys. Every time I've been to a machine shop,
Yeah.
the first thing I notice is there's always a wall full of awards, either from racing or whatever they've done. I don't know if it's like it for every machine shop. I've only been to like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
In your opinions, have you experienced that? And 2, if that's the case, does that eventually all blur? Like, is that not important to have that wall of like awards?
Depends on how old they are.
Yeah.
If they're from the 60s and 70s, it really doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
So,
They're almost non-relevant anymore.
exactly.
I mean, the technology hasn't changed that much for the machining.
right.
I mean,
But is it
all
even
in
the
all.
same people running it?
right.
know.
And it may not be. But it also may be family.
Yeah,
that,
sure.
This guy learned from
Yep,
his
yep.
dad.
And they've got
you
good
know.
practices, but
Yeah.
that doesn't, if they don't have something current, that doesn't really play into it that much.
Yeah.
Their reputation is going to play into it more,
So
right? So awards, meh, whatever.
the guy that I went to for my Toyota motor, he had lots of awards, but they were from Fords and Chevys and stuff like that, right? So maybe it wasn't so relevant for my build. Had I taken my old 292Y block in there, maybe it would have been. The one thing I noticed when I walked through that dude's door was the pile of parts that he had along all 3 internal walls, minus blocking the door to get out to the shop.
Yeah.
I mean, he had mountains of parts,
Yeah.
and all of the parts that were sitting in there were actually parts for people's cars. So he had them sorted in piles. This is going into this guy's motor, this going into this guy's motor, all the way around the room.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with the last builder that I was at. He's got, for some reason, guys don't throw away the old parts, right? He's got mounts of blocks and cranks and just piles of this and that. I mean, typical machine shop guy.
Yep.
So does that mean you
The
guys
stuff
trust?
is not used for nothing. It's just laying around because he hasn't gone to the recycler for a long
Right.
time. But no, that doesn't play into my
Oh, well, I was
at
gonna
all.
ask,
I was just kind of
do you guys
commenting.
trust then a more organized shop then, or something that just even if you can't decide see what it is, they've got their organized chaos.
Yeah, it's organized chaos for sure. I mean,
It's chaos for sure, 100%.
yeah, there's a level of cleanliness that you expect, but there's also a level of not necessarily disorganization, but there's grease and grime. I mean, it's a dirty job, right?
Yeah.
So they've got their layout tables, and typically those are really clean,
The one thing
they're
I like
building-
to see,
areas and that kind of stuff. It just kind of
Yeah.
depends.
the one thing I like to see, usually you see heads standing up on the ground. The one thing I like to see is that they're not right on the concrete, one, and two, they have tags on them. So they are actually your heads going onto your vehicle.
Ideally.
So I got a question to ask you guys. If you enter a machine shop and you see a crank or a cam and it's just laying on the table, do you turn around and walk out?
Depends on what they're doing with
Yeah,
it.
we can't.
I'm
know.
saying they're storing it laying down.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
You know what I'm
machine
talking about?
shops I go into, but I have seen one laying on the bench, but it was actually physically getting ready to go into the motor that was laying next to it.
Okay, but do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So for our listeners, just so they're clarified on that one, when you're storing a crank or a camshaft, you want to store it in a vertical position.
I don't know how relevant that is.
No.
I think that's an old wives' tale. That's a bunch of bullshit.
It is. And it's also dangerous, too, because if it
Yeah.
falls over, then it's out of balance.
Yep.
If you know anything about warehousing that stuff, it all lays on its side.
Well,
All of it.
yeah. When I was at Wyotech and part of the high performance engine, that was the one thing we were always taught is you keep
Yeah.
your cams like that, keep your cranks like that, keep them all, because you've got a big motor.
They're already
let-
balanced, though.
let me
There's-
ask you
there's
this.
Nothing to... The weight of itself is not going to throw it out of balance.
Yeah.
That's a complete wives' tale. If they're that soft that laying them on the side throws them out of balance, you don't want that in your motor.
That's true. No.
So think of it this way: when they make them, how do they make them?
robots.
They do them standing up,
No.
or do they do them laying flat?
They're horizontal.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But that's making them. That's not storing them.
doesn't matter. You're spinning that thing at a.
How does it stored in your motor?
It's in a cradle.
Horizontal.
Yeah, but stored in
Horizontally.
the cradles to keep
I
the
don't think it
pressure
matters.
all the way even around that. I asked that question in class.
It's ridiculous.
I
dude.
think
no, that's a
I
wives'
think it's
So-
a wives' tale.
yeah.
Here's the other question to ask you guys in terms of machine shops and going into the future. We're seeing a lot more technology advancing with engines. Right now, we have Hyundai's with continuous variable pistons. We have Ferrari coming out with
Variable pistons.
with oval shaped pistons.
I like
round
the,
pistons.
I like the ovals. Those are cool.
We have now Porsches with six
6-stroke.
six stroke. So let's say next 10 years, do you still trust the old tried and true old guy who's behind the counter? Or do you try to look for the, depending on your motor situation, do you find someone who is younger and has all the technology and is always on his computer?
Again, I'm looking for the guy that builds that type of motor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But an old guy, he's got some old tried and true technology. I mean, right? There's
Knows how to build that horsepower.
He knows how to build it. And yes, it's different, but at some point, even the older guys have to learn the new stuff to keep up with the market.
Yeah. I'm kind of. I don't really care if it's a 20-year-old building my motor as long as he knows his shit.
Yeah.
Like if he's into horsepower and into LS motors, I'm pretty sure he's going to do it. The right way. You'd hope. I'm sure if he can use newer technology and balancing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What about when
All about it.
a builder recommends you technology and techniques you haven't used before? For example, a variable piston, like we talked about. Say that's
I
something
don't
that's
think
been aftermarket and can be.
Okay.
When does your confidence level be like, I trust this person to say he can do this, let's go this route?
Yeah, it depends on your, what's a good word? Your willingness to try new technologies that might not work.
Yeah.
Right? So if, this is quote unquote what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to give you more power. It changes the timing of blah, 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 intake and exhaust and all that stuff via some port on a piston. I don't know how it works. Just throwing shit on the wall, see if it sticks. What's your willingness to try it? And then how do you feel if it's not what you were promised?
Yeah.
Right? So personally, they offered me something like that, rebuilding my LS. I'd be like, nah, just build it the way I want it,
Yeah.
Just build it the way it was. These parts all fit together. Let's do it like that. So, I don't know.
I mean, some of that stuff is tried and true, though, right? Like port matching your exhaust to your exhaust manifold, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you can port and polish those to match the size.
Yeah, absolutely.
That stuff works, but like, if it's not a true,
Yeah, if it's a new technology and like, no, I'm not so game to do that.
yeah. Have you done it before?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. Did it work? Yes. Okay. Maybe I would consider it.
Right.
Did it work? No.
Nah. But I want to try it this way. Not on my motor. Yeah. I'm not your guinea pig.
Yeah, no.
Some people are about it though, and obviously somebody down the line, I think those guys that are innovating, they're trying it on their own motors to start with because that's how you do it. They're more willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to build a motor that does this. It's different than conventional. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
That's cool. Somebody has to be that pioneer,
Right.
but I don't think the person coming into a shop saying, hey, I need my motor rebuilt. Hey, I got this new thing I want to try on your motor. I don't think so.
Even if it's not, let's try it. They've done it, say, for a couple of years. They've got a dozen motors under it. It's new, but it's not new to them. When does
maybe.
comfort level be like, okay,
Yeah,
they've done this.
if the technology has been done, they've been using it for several years.
Yeah.
I'm more open to it for sure.
yeah,
And depending what that promises for either performance or longevity or whatever it is, like we want to do this special ceramic coating on your crank. It makes it slipperier and whatever. This is what it promises to do. And we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. It works awesome. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
Have you guys ever ran into a situation where you're at a machine shop and they have their secret sauce? Like they say, we'll give you more power this, but we're not going to tell you how we're going to do it.
That
Do you
makes me
trust
leery.
the shop then or not? But they've got a reputation. They do build the best engines.
That makes me leery, though.
Does it?
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy?
If they're not going to tell you what they're doing.
They're not going to tell you, but say they
Yeah.
they've been known to make like an extra 100 horses over every other shop.
Basically, what they're doing is having you write a bigger check, and they're just putting your motor together
Right.
because they're not telling you something.
Yeah. No.
We're not doing anything special. We're just charging more.
I want to know what they do,
Yeah, for sure.
and any good engine builder is not going to hide that from you.
I agree.
I think if they're worth their weight in salt. I had a thought. Is there a way that these engine builders find out about the new technology? Like how doctors have like a quarterly
So innovation. How do they find
Yeah.
out innovation? Well,
YouTube
SEMA.
is a great
SEMA,
tool.
yeah.
SEMA.
SEMA.
What is it?
Said YouTube is a great tool.
Yeah, but I mean, like, engine builders for Formula One, right? They come up with new technology, and they can't hide shit, right?
Right.
There's certain specifications that they have to stay within. Those guys have to like relay that information out to someone,
That goes to the governing body,
right?
whoever's building the motors, and it all has to be approved and that kind of stuff. So yes, that technology trickled down effect,
Right.
basically, right?
Does it trickle
Whether-
down to your local machine shop?
Well, eventually, some of it does, right? Maybe not. Formula One's a bad example,
Right.
Because it's
Okay, maybe
super specialized, right? Yeah, but NASCAR, I think that technology does trickle down. It's maybe a slow trickle,
Right.
but I think it does, absolutely. And especially like those, say, this year's motors. They're all hopped up, got all the latest technologies, the coolest shit. 2 years from now, they're not using that motor anymore. That gets sold off to XYZ. Somebody buys it, runs it on a smaller circuit, and they start tearing into things. And they're like, hey, this is pretty cool. This is different.
Yeah.
That's how those innovations get kind of discovered by the general populace. Unless they're backed by, say, Toyota, Ford, whoever, some of that technology is then rerouted through manufacturing back to the manufacturers and how they build motors. We've used this technology. It's worked very well. We can spin different RPMs. They don't use turbos and that kind of stuff, but that's how that information is shared.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So here's one thing I'm surprised hasn't really hit the mass market yet and hasn't been implemented in more machine shops has been the free valve system by Koenigsegg. So I know
Is it patented?
It's probably
it's
patented.
patented,
Yeah.
but I know they've given all their source material out for developing it, so anyone can look at it and develop more. There's a YouTuber who's doing a Miata engine with a free valve engine, and started with a Predator motor from Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
To prove that
For a
worked.
Miata?
Yeah, first he was doing Predator motor, and then he did a Miata
So
engine
he
build on top.
he
of that.
tried concept on an inexpensive motor.
Correct,
first.
and I'm surprised we're not seeing that. A, in more cars, but B, more machine shops trying to figure out and going that way. Because I feel like that's an untapped technology.
Well, I think it just takes time.
Yeah.
It just, Koenigsegg developed it, and cool that they let the information, out,
Yeah.
whatever. But I think it just takes time. It takes people willing to experiment with it and build this and that. And then I think once, I don't know how difficult it is to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that plays into it. How expensive it is
Yeah.
to put this technology into action.
And so that's the other thing is I know before one of the first public companies to get it was a Chinese company back when Koenigsegg developed it and implemented it in their cars. I know it hasn't made US bound, but that's the thing is like it can be implemented on a mass market,
Okay.
which is interesting on that one. And the ottle thing is I believe Free Valve's been out for almost about a decade now. How much time do you give out before it's like, why is this
I think it's 15 years for
It's
a patent.
15 years on the patent.
Well, I'm not just saying for that. I'm just saying like until it's people
I don't know.
grab it and start using it more.
I don't know.
If you got a better cam system, why isn't everyone developing it and be like a
Cost?
lot more?
Yeah,
Cost.
maybe it's cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like even for example, your engine builder, building some of the best motors around. Like say if you're building a race car motor, you want someone that builds the best of the best. It wins races. Why would they not be going? We're developing this.
Cost.
Well,
I'll say it three more times. Cost.
I think cost is one of the
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah,
The other is how long does it last?
I don't know.
Because if it lasts a long time,
I mean, Free Valve is an electric.
our company is not going to let that happen.
Well, so the thing is, it's a
Most of them.
is it
Explain the technology.
So Free Valve system does not use a cam. It's each cylinder has their valves over on top of it and is actuated by, I believe, an air solenoid.
Like
Okay,
by
so-
pneumatic.
Yes.
I can already tell you why race engine builders don't use it.
Okay.
Failure. Failure points. There's far too many.
Okay. There's less moving parts.
Yes and no.
Yes.
If you lose air pressure, you're done, and done.
Yeah, your car doesn't.
It's not a mechanical. So in a mechanical motor, everything is driven off of your crank and timing.
Hear me out. If it's not pneumatic and it's by a solenoid, electrical solenoid, it might be that one. Like,
Even more failure.
Yeah.
okay.
Then you have electrical issues. Then
Okay.
you have all those solenoids have to function perfectly in sync. If it's cam driven, it's all driven together. Now, granted, if you lose a timing chain, you're done.
Yeah.
But that's such a low failure rate now.
Yeah.
Because it's tried and true and proven and all that. But on a solenoid driven 16 valve whatever, you've got 16 different solenoids that have to fire in sequence in timing. Yeah, it's just way too much. It's too
So-
complicated.
I'm going to use an analogy from paintball.
Okay.
So paintball guns are electro-pneumatic. Most of the new ones, right?
Yeah.
The electro-pneumatic cylinders, and especially the pneumatic side, has a finite number of cycles.
Oh, yeah.
So what Rob is saying has a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So like the paintball gun or marker I have, they say about every 100,000 cycles,
Yeah.
you're going to have to replace the solenoid. That being said, how many times do those things cycle in an hour time span?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my rebuttal to that would be
lot.
if you've got it in a $5-6 million hypercar like Koenigsegg, and you're running that at
Money's no object.
well, not only that, but I'm saying is like I understand time, how long it wears over time. But if you're on cars like that, especially if on the race car, you're not going to have it putting 30,000, 100,000 miles. You're going to probably be putting 5,000 miles,
Right.
10,000 miles.
Or how, like I said, how long does it last?
Yeah,
How many cycles are you going to get out of an hour?
yeah.
100,000.
But
Right. So, I mean, you're looking at in a 4-stroke engine for every cycle, every revolution, those things move 4 times.
yeah,
Right. That's a lot. So you're looking at
Now,
it 7,000
boils down to
RPMs.
cost and failure.
Yeah.
It's just not there. And in a hypercar,
Yeah.
those guys don't operate on the same level, right?
Yeah.
That car is how many millions of dollars. Maintenance is absolutely absurd,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they can do all this wild and cool shit because it's bling bling, and they can say, "Hey, man, it doesn't even have a cam. It's so cool." How often do you have to service that? Oh, I don't know. I just drop it off.
Let's
Yeah.
boil this down to something then the more relatable. Drag racing. How often do people rebuild their motor?
Every run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you've got one
you
less
know
moving
why?
part, because they break.
Well, no, because their tolerance are so finite that
Yeah.
they're only built to run for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, those motors are giant and everything is super light and super thin, and that's exactly why.
Yeah.
So maybe that works for them, but they're also looking at failure points. If they lose one of those pneumatic valves,
Yeah.
they're run shot. They can't afford that.
Yeah.
They're run shot, and it's $150,000 to rebuild the motor.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to rebuild it anyways.
they
Well,
are, but
they
then
are.
they lost.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and they have to rebuild.
Well, and
so that sucks.
but a rebuild for them can be taking the heads off, making sure the pistons are good, and that kind of stuff, right?
Well, it's a full teardown between every
Right.
run.
But that failure could be the difference between
Winning and
tearing it
losing.
apart or exploding the engine.
That's true too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that's why it's not ready for mass production.
Yeah.
My opinion. Maybe I'm way off base, but I don't think so. I think it's just cost and failure.
Yeah. And maybe it moves the failure point, right? So in a mechanical motor, you're probably going to have a valve fail, or your cam, one of the lobes on your cam is going to wear out or something like that, right?
Those things definitely happen.
Maybe that goes away with the pneumatic cylinder.
Right.
And maybe the pneumatic cylinder or whatever, the solenoid is, maybe they last longer than we think they do, one.
Sure.
And two, maybe they're way cheaper than we think they are.
Yeah.
So the maintenance on them might be fairly inexpensive.
I
We don't know.
yeah.
True. And what happens if one in, say, your basic street car does fail?
Right.
Your car just runs rough or whatever, and then you have to troubleshoot. Oh, and the codes say, number 3 cylinder
Number
Plunger
three,
isn't
out
working.
out
out
of
of
service.
sync. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. And you're right. Maybe they're super cheap and easy to replace.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But I don't know.
It's interesting with the feed valve. You're taking away so many moving parts. You don't have throttle bodies anymore. Your variable valve timing is infinite, and your cylinder deactivation you could do again infinite, because how many cylinders you just hold them off. You can even do.
Yeah, it's all a computer program now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought while we were talking about a good analogy of probably where free valve is, probably
Okay.
is the comparison to how the fuel injection used to be at the start versus carburetor. Because fuel injection wasn't the greatest. It's very expensive at the time, but look at it now. It's used everywhere.
Yeah.
Because everyone back in the day in the 60s would be like, why don't you use a carburetor? Everyone's using it as the best technology, but we saw it evolve over time.
Sure.
And we could possibly see that with free valve.
No, I think you're right, and especially on cheaper cars, smaller. I'm thinking like your Geo Metros, right?
Yeah.
You've got the little economical 3-banger, with free valve. You've got less moving parts in it, less expensive to build. Because you're probably right; those actuators can't be that expensive. At least not when you get it down to really small valves on little commuter cars or whatever.
Yeah.
My thought process,
Cheaper than a cam and timing.
instead of the small fuel economy cars, I feel with free valve, when it hits the market, when it becomes available to everyone, when it's a technology that more people are using, when machine shops can know how to build power and everything out of this, I think what it'll actually do is refresh older engines that had like, for example, the 6.8 liter V10 of the Excursion, or any big, like the 454 Chevy motor from back in the 90s, right? Made okay power, but the biggest thing was fuel economy. Why? Because some big moving parts. You take the cam system out of it, that's going to improve fuel economy on those things. It's going to build a little more power. It's going to make it more relevant in the modern day.
I see what you're getting at, but I don't see it being feasible just because the blocks aren't built for it.
I think what you're going to see
Block is going to have to be different for a free valve system because it won't have a cam,
right.
and it won't have the timing, and it won't have all
Your heads will have to
yeah,
be
the
different.
ports and all that. Yeah, everything will be different.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to end up seeing is it'll come into racing first. And it might be something like Formula One. It might be the 24 Hours of Le Mans, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Some 24-hour race. So they can prove that it works for
Extended
an
periods.
extended period of time.
Yeah.
You'll see it there first. And then you might see it go into some of the higher end cars, like McLaren or whatever.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll see him go into the higher end Mustangs, maybe the
Trickle
LS
down.
motor
Trickle down
might
effect.
start doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see it in old excursions first.
Well, I'm saying that would be great if the technology get to it. Kind of like how you have everything ran by carburetor, and when you can start throwing fuel injection on things, as an example. you know.
Right.
I think
maybe you'll see it go
Conversion
that
kit to
eventually?
that would be
Yeah.
interesting. I think
Yeah.
it would be harder to do than just starting from scratch.
yes, but I guess what I'm saying is it makes it so any old block that's irrelevant. Say it made 160 horses at the time. Let's just say with a 4-cylinder Volkswagen motor, right? Why would you buy that when you buy a new Honda motor that makes 240 and start from there? Well, because you buy them cheap. They're everywhere. And from there, it's something you start with. And if you can put a free valve system or let's say any kind of technology on that and make that now where that is competing with a 200 horsepower motor and you're able to do it on a budget. And let's expand technology, say not just free valve, but anything that develops in the future.
Sure.
That I think is great to save those older engines.
Or replace them
Or replace them.
and melt them
Yeah.
down.
Cycling back.
I think
you guys,
that's probably more likely.
Probably.
cycling back to machine shops.
I get what he's getting at, though.
Yeah, I do too.
I wanted to ask you guys on a question on this one because this one I've been trying to figure out on this. If you go to a machine shop and they build you either one-off parts or do something where they're the only one talented enough to build it a certain way, what do you do when it breaks?
Yeah, I'm not. That's not happening. You're not putting one-off parts in my motor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even techniques they know how to just do it just right. Then if it breaks, do you then say, "Well, I'm out. I'm waiting."
A technique is fine, but if you're changing how it works or changing parts that nobody can get,
Yeah.
then I'm out. No, that's not
So
okay.
let me ask this: Are you talking about? Let's say I have a V8,
Yeah.
and I want to balance it.
Okay.
Are you talking about the machine shop going in and milling enough weight out of each one of the pistons to make them weigh exactly the same amount?
I'm thinking something like a machine shop says, "Okay, this will make the most power for you. The way we've done this is like the harmonic balancer has got to be milled to specific spec. That's how I've done for all the engines. That's how it goes."
Well, in that example, that's not a big deal, but okay.
Or, one of the things I was thinking more relevant would be like, because we're going, again, with the future talk, people using more 3D printing. Mm-hmm. And my thought was like, okay, this engine will only work if you have this intake with it. And say you have this intake that you bought a racing one from Summit or wherever, and they don't make it anymore.
Yeah, that happens.
What do you do then?
That actually happens now.
Yeah.
So then you have to change gears and find something else that is going to replace or upgrade and change direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually
if you
when they obsolete something, they bring something else out.
Typically.
Yeah.
But not always.
Not always, yeah.
You know.
That's the mother of the invention, right? Now you have to find a different way. Now, if you're working on something that is old enough that there's super obsolete parts and you take your inline 6 whatever to the machine shop and say, hey, there's not very many of these around. Let's see what we can do to make it run and be reliable, or maybe a little more power, but just get it running, right? And they have to make parts to do that. I think then you're kind of stuck. You have to go down that road because there just aren't any parts.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But if you're talking about putting my LS together with some handmade parts, then no. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to do that with a one-off
Right.
intake or something like that.
No. Yeah,
But you might have them balance the pistons.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would hope so.
Yeah, and spin your crank and balance the crank.
Yeah.
And, you definitely want it blueprinted and balanced.
Well, let's just say the dishes on the pistons, they mill a certain way, so that way as fuel and air goes into it, the vortex into that has a great combustion way. That's one of the things they've been able to do.
But you buy them like
I'm okay
that
with
now,
that.
right?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean,
know?
yeah, there's certain shops that have their, like Grant said, their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because they're taking a stock-ish, aftermarket piston, whatever,
Yeah.
and they're putting their own groove on it, their own precision into those parts.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because somewhere down the line, if I got to get it rebuilt again, it's just a new set of pistons.
Yeah, you're going to take it in.
But
they're
if
gonna
they
do it
say
again.
Yeah.
something like that and just say, this works because the intake we have in here is made of special material, or it's developed in a way so air flows faster in there. If
And-
you use a stock intake, it's gone.
Well, and that would be my question. Like, okay, down the road,
Yeah.
what do I have to do? Is this now defunct if I have to have the motor rebuilt and
Yeah.
different pistons going? And if they say yes, then I'm like, then we're not going to probably do that because I'm protecting myself for the future. But that's a conversation.
So then how far out do you look at that? Say if you got, a motor's good, let's just say 5 years that before whatever method or technology they used in that was their method.
Yeah.
Possibly that the company that they bought the parts for no longer exists. You've got $30,000 into a motor.
Yep.
Is that justified?
Nope.
Or how much time does it take before it's no longer like, I would rather go this route because I'm making less power. I can go to any shop and find this, and essentially you're just buying.
For me personally,
Yeah.
5 years is like you're likely going to have it rebuilt in 5 years, maybe sooner.
Yeah.
Depending on the horsepower and the compression ratio you're running and all that. So yeah, if they're saying that technology, I'll have to stay with them, or if it goes out, if they go out of business or whatever, I'm screwed and have to go a different direction. Then I'm like, no, then just build it the way anybody else would build an LS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not long enough. Now, if they're saying, oh, this will last 25 years, then maybe,
Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
I mean, I'm not necessarily going to want the one-off stuff either, right? Most of the things I'm going to build something for, I want to last for a long time.
Even if it's not one off, let's just say the part that they incorporated was working, was great, but like say that company's been teetering, like the parts they're using and they're no longer being supplied.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go find something else.
Yeah. So would that mean
when I have to rebuild again?
Yeah.
I'm going to go find something else.
Yeah.
And I will probably do the research and figure out what the latest and greatest is. I'm not going to worry about what was in there before.
Yeah.
If I'm looking to build similar horsepower or something like that, do the research and figure it out. What's the newest, latest, and greatest thing? Because
and they're going to say all electric. Let me tell you about it. Bud.
What happens today is not necessarily the best thing for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, look at flathead Fords. Back in the 30s and 40s, that was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Making a lot of power, small V8, impact.
Well, you said
by
it
the
earlier.
60s,
Fuel injection sucked in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in the 80s, it got a little better. In the 90s, it got even better. In the 2000s, it's even better.
Yeah.
Yep.
What technology worked yesterday is not the same as today.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, with that example in mind, the fuel injection in over the 20-year span, right? It's been longer than that, but still, same with your free valve situation. 20 years from now, it'll probably be everywhere.
Yeah.
If we're still even driving combustion engines. Maybe free valve's awesome for hydrogen engines. I don't know. Because they can change the timing so easily.
So how hard was it in the 90s to build 1,000 horsepower?
Oh,
brutal.
without or with turbos?
Without.
Because there wasn't, in the 90s, turbos were a lot harder to come by.
How hard is it to take a Mustang or a Camaro?
Let me get on Amazon.
Right. Yeah. How hard is it to build one of those with 1,000 horsepower today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those cars come with 800.
Technology.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, hell, you could buy a Hellfender motor straight from Dodge still with 1,000 horsepower,
Right.
Yeah.
which is nuts.
Yeah, you can buy a crate motor for...
Can we talk on the opposite end, though? Because now we're talking about futuristic and money and blah, blah. When do you go to a builder if you're doing on a budget? And when do you trust that? We got
Going to
people
a
who are
budget builder.
Exactly.
Well, what am I building for?
Let's just say I've got a V12 BMW. Like the older kind, right? From the 90s.
Yeah.
Or a
It needs to be
Jaguar V12.
And not everyone works on a V12 Or
Somebody
Jaguar.
has one.
But you're not going to find anyone who specializes like on a budget. And do you say, hey, I found a builder that can do pistons and check, bore scope and get all the measurements done? And if so, how much money do you get into that? When do you say this is a budget build? This guy works for me.
Okay, so the budget builder trying to build a very specialized motor, is he building it for horsepower or just to get it back on the road? Big difference.
Yeah. Let's just say for a basic repair. And it doesn't even have to be a specialized motor. Let's say you got a Honda that's
Just
broken.
a basic refresh.
Correct.
Oh, a Honda? We're not doing the V12 now?
I mean, it could be either or. I'm just
Anybody
saying
will
is-
build a Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot. Take it.
I'll go find
Take
a
it
K
apart.
motor.
Yeah, take it apart in your garage and do it yourself.
Well, let's just okay. I should clarify this.
Yes.
Uncommon for the area. So say if you're in an area where a 4-cylinder is common, but you have a V8 and no one, I'm talking like within like say a 500-mile radius does that. Do you say
And you just need it rebuilt to run. This is going to be your daily or something.
correct?
Okay. Because that makes a big
Yeah.
difference, really. If you're mechanically inclined at all, I think you can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just needing it to run, you got to throw it in your C10 pickup and just get you to point A to point B. I think you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're mechanical.
Yeah.
Get a book, watch YouTube, do it.
You
Take
can
your
do
time.
that, but the machining, you got to find someone who's
Yes.
Well, what do
okay,
you
yes.
what do you
No,
have to
you're right.
machine? How bad off
You
is
gotta
the-
hone your cylinders or whatever.
You can
And
buy
you
a
want make-
hone and do it with your drill, though.
Yeah, you want to make sure it's straight.
heck. If you're doing a head,
Hey, let's
if,
not get stupid.
if you're doing a head job, you should have it decked, right?
You really should, but maybe not. Maybe you look at your cylinders and you're like, this is a backyard barn job. You pull the heads off. You pulled everything apart. You look at your cylinders; they look pretty decent. You're like, all right, I bought some rings. I'm gonna take my rings. I'm gonna check them with my feeler gauges, make sure everything fits right. I'm gonna put it back together.
Okay.
And if it's a Chevy 350,
It'll run.
well, if it's a Chevy 350 and you need to deck the heads, maybe it's cheaper to buy new heads.
Well, that's valid.
That's true. Let's say it's something where it's sentimental. Again, like that BMW. Now everyone does that, and just say, okay, you could put in a new head, whatever. Let's say the bores, the
Cylinders.
pitted, the cylinders are pitted.
Okay.
It needs to be bored over.
Okay.
Okay, this is actual machine shop needs to be done.
Yes.
Okay, and no one in the area works on that.
Yep.
Who do you go to trust? Do you go and say by their word? Do you say, okay, who's got the best reputation? Do you?
I think because you're talking budget.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, you need to do a large amount of the work yourself.
Yes.
You're going to have to do the tear down yourself. You're going to take your new pistons and rings to the machine shop with you. You're going to say, I need this bored and honed. I need it to fit these pistons. Here's the specs. Help me out. They do that amount of work. You bring it back. You put it together.
Yeah. I think
Especially, and same with the heads, to get the heads decked and make sure everything's milled and nice and flat and perfect.
Yeah, and I think if they can do the Honda motor or the Chevy motor or something like that, and you need to have
A 12-cylinder.
a 12-cylinder, yeah.
Well,
that
as long as
machine
it fits in their machine.
Yeah, as long as it fits in the machine, that machine's it's gonna be multifaceted, right? It's
Pretty
gonna be able to
universal.
do
yeah.
almost everything.
And we're not building high horsepower. We're just getting it back on the road. So you got to have confidence in yourself to be able to torque things and check bearing specs and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and make sure you got some good manuals and maybe a buddy.
I think anyone who's doing something like that also needs to really take the time, grab a book, go on YouTube, look at forums, and do their research before going in.
Yeah.
Don't go to an engine builder and say, I've got a problem. Can you fix it? What can I do? Educate yourself while that process is going on, or and make sure before you're educating yourself.
And it seems super overwhelming, but honestly, it's a machine. It's not that bad. Like, the reason I want my motor done by a professional is because it's a race motor.
Yeah.
I want it high quality. I don't want to make a mistake and detonate my motor. Now, the motor in my C3, more than happy to go through that myself, and I plan on it, actually. I'm actually looking forward to doing that. But I'm not turning high horsepower in that. I just want it to run and, not burn a lot of oil.
Yeah, you want to jump
So-
in that thing and run down to the bar. And back.
Yeah, well, not to the bar, but yeah, I just want to drive it on a Sunday, right? It's a big difference. So I think there's a lot of people that can rebuild a standard motor. It just takes a little bit of knowledge, a little prep. And yeah, like you said, you got to find that machine shop that's willing to do a little cylinder work and maybe a little head work for you.
what if it's on a budget on say something like a rotary?
I
Not every shop does that. And say, do you
I have no
then go and trust their word for the best that they like? I can do the best I can. Say, okay, great.
I wouldn't trust any shop with a rotary unless they're
specialized with it.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed. They have to be specialized in that particular equipment, and then you kind of have to trust it.
Yeah.
You know.
There are some. I don't know if there are any budget ones, but there are some rotary shops
Yeah.
in the United States that people really trust.
Yeah.
And most of them I don't think are in the Northwest.
And I guess I bring that up. Not just rotary. I should specify specialized engines. When do you say, okay, this is no longer a budget or possibly a budget? Like rotary is an example, or like another one be a W design engine from Volkswagen. And am I even talking about a guy? I'm talking like you got a Phaeton with a W12 or even a VR6 engine that's kind of a straight but not a straight.
Right.
Yeah. Do
you got into some specialized equipment there, some rare air.
Yeah.
So
do you bite the bullet
I think
and say go and
good luck.
find someone, or do you trust them?
I mean, if you've got
I think
one of
in
those,
specialty stuff like that,
yeah.
you might be shipping your motor somewhere.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're going to pay a pretty penny to get that worked on.
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's the price you pay for really specialty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So along those same lines, when you take a motor in to rebuild it, how far are you willing to travel?
Yeah, that's a big thing. And
Long ways.
and either ship it or bring it with you to bring it there.
Right.
Right. And is it worth, if it's 200 miles, is it
easy.
worth just driving
Yes.
or do you ship it?
200 is easy drive.
Now what if it turns into 1,000?
Still doing it.
Yeah.
I'll drive a good 10 to 12 hours if I have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Each
One way.
Each
Yeah.
way. Okay.
I don't know.
Make it into a weekend or whatever.
The furthest I've gone out for an engine, I think, is what's it called? Lewis and Clark. So it's around the border of Idaho. Is what 8 hours drive, right?
Yeah. I think Rob did that a month ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like the longest I've done. Is about it was a 20-hour trip or something like that. But like if you're having something, let's say across the United States, the best engine builder is in North Carolina for I don't know Vipers. Let's just say. Do you drive with your truck and go that way?
No, I'm shipping
I'd
it.
probably
at that
ship
point.
And that's the other thing is, how much do you trust that shipper?
Not
and
very
how
much.
Do you
It
have
scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But
Well, and you're probably going to box it or
and
crate
insure
it.
the shit out of it
You're going to crate it, insure the shit out of it, and
Yeah.
then you're going to ship it, right?
and cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Choose the best shipper you can. I know that's expensive.
Because the last thing you want to have is have your engine that's on a pallet, that's wrapped up, sitting outside in the rain for a day because delays happen. It's been raining, and now you just got a little bit of moisture that you never saw because by the time it got to you, it's gone. Now, do you trust that? That your race motor that you built?
Well,
Most of the time, they're going to dip your motor anyway before they start rebuilding it. They usually do a hot soak.
Okay.
I have no idea. But
It's not
I guess,
water.
I guess
but-
I'm not just saying. I'm just saying like something along the journey possibly caused damage.
I know
that you can't
that's a risk.
You know.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I mean,
It's a
buy
risk
yourself
You're probably going to have to take, right?
buy a motor crate, one of the plastic motor crates that is fully sealed. You bolt it together. Like I got one with my Viper motor.
And hope to God it doesn't get punctured.
I mean, there's always risk,
Yeah.
but that's also why you insure it.
But on the same token, once it's put together and they're shipping it back, after
Should be
they've done
pretty
the
sealed
work,
up.
heads are on it.
Yeah.
You probably don't need to worry about it that much. I mean, you run your car in the rain all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I can guarantee water gets on it from the bottom.
Yeah.
I
I don't know. Shipping
yeah.
is a risk, but I think I'm not driving it across the country. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'll go 10 hours or so.
Water probably was not a bit. Like, say, for example, some guy at FedEx got curious, opened it up, maybe took a picture, dropped something in there.
Or your forklift driver dropped it off the end of his fork.
Even better. Example.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a more likely situation.
Yeah.
that could happen if it was coming out of the back of your truck or if it was coming off somebody else.
But you have eyes on it then.
So still,
What are you going to do?
yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch it if somebody's dropping it from the back of your truck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the risks.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't not do it.
Yeah.
You can just let it sit in your garage. Well, I don't want to ship it across the country, so there it sits.
I guess the best way to think about this is if you're having an engine shipped to you and you're worried about it, you should feel the same way if you're buying and being shipped a crate motor. Same risks.
for sure.
Yeah.
And if you have confidence in that, you should have confidence in the other route.
Yeah.
So,
It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a risk, right?
yeah.
The truck could get in an accident halfway to wherever it's going or coming back. I mean, that's
why you
have
insure the
insurance.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get in an accident on the way there or the way back too, right?
Yeah.
No.
Perfect world.
Yeah,
Perfect world.
shit happens.
Okay. Did we kill that?
I think no, but yes.
Yeah,
I think we did.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
was it?
It was
Yes.
great.
Let's talk about some cars.
You want to?
Not
We haven't
just-
been
not
talking
just
about cars?
motors.
Okay. Then.
No, we've been talking about motors. That's completely different.
Okay.
Totally different
I thought we were
subject.
talking about boats, but that's fine.
I did earlier.
Oh, boats.
Damn it!
All right.
Did I put boats on our list?
So our topic was, the homework was, make a list of the cars that you have owned.
Mhm.
I included cars that I have driven substantially. I guess that was not clear in the original topic notes, but we're going to kind of add that. So,
Is that going to be picked up?
Probably
yeah,
a little bit.
That's all right.
Okay.
It's starting to rain. It's a little loud.
Our tornado's coming.
Tornado is on the way.
Yeah.
Now,
Tornado.
you poor people in the Midwest, we're not having a tornado.
I mean, it was in the car.
It was in the forecast. It's not happening.
We're in the Northwest.
I'm just going to say this right now, and I'm going to knock on some wood before the roof gets sucked out and we're in some kind of 90s action
Not going to
movie.
happen here.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen here.
I don't think so either.
All right. No. We have... Okay, so my list contains how many? 46 vehicles.
Damn. Good for you.
Well, I actually thought your list would be more.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I got 19.
it's about quality, not quantity.
Oh, okay.
So, and here's the other thing. I only put on this list what I've actually owned.
Okay.
I didn't put any of the extras on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of some, but
I've got about 90% of these I have actually owned.
yeah.
So, there's 5 or 6 vehicles that I've just gotten to drive. Great experiences, those kind of things. People have said, hey, drive my car. It's awesome.
And as I'm sitting here, I know I missed one because I just thought of it.
You got your list right there.
I
You
know.
can put it on there.
I don't know where to add it.
Oh, jeez.
I tried to add all these in chronological order.
Oh, you got all
I did.
brainiac on it. Well, I started that way, I think, and then I remembered a bunch at the end. So, anywho, I think let me read the original question, and this was a Grant question.
Yay.
If you could only have every car you've ever owned for the rest of your life, minus your favorite one and the worst one, would you still enjoy that collection of cars? Yeah.
So, would I enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could enjoy it.
Minus the best, your favorite car, and minus the worst car. You
So
take those two out, and you have the rest of those cars for the rest of your life. But that's it.
So that's a hard one
Kind of.
That's the
because I
point
don't
of it.
know which one my best is and which one. I mean, I can tell you which one I think is my worst car
Okay.
or worst 2 cars, and you
Okay.
can have both of them.
Sure.
We're not including non-running ones, right?
You're including anything you've owned. I
Like,
think.
if we're including the best and worst, including non-running cars, I mean, mine's pretty.
Well,
But if we're not,
I don't know. That's a
Okay.
valid question, I guess, because I have a couple of non-running cars that I could just throw out too.
let's say at one point they were running, and you were able to.
and they're in running condition.
Yeah, if they're
Okay.
broken now, then okay.
fair.
But
Sure.
if they were running, let's add that. That
right.
way I can't go, well, I can get rid of the Lambo.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, see, and that's a hard one for me because I'm not really sure which one was my best.
Okay.
Because I've got several on here that I absolutely love.
Okay.
Agreed.
So
Let's just say out of those, let's say you have several that are your favorite.
Yeah.
One of those is gone. It doesn't matter which one. Just say one of those, and then minus your worst one. Could you live with that list? If you, because especially if you can't narrow it down, say there's 3, one of them's going to go.
Could I live with it? Yes.
Would you be happy with it?
There are a lot of cars that I'd really like to own someday.
Yeah.
I think there's, let me rephrase that. There's one car that I would really like to own someday to be able to come to the track and put down some times.
Yeah, I've got those cars that I really want to own someday too, but probably not going to happen.
Mine's realistic though.
But that,
okay,
Mine's
not.
realistic.
Okay. But
So the one car missing off this list that I really would love to own someday is a C5.
okay, I was going to say, if you say
Well, that's
McLaren
totally
F1,
realistic.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not on here. I would cry if I couldn't own one
Yeah.
at some point in my life.
No, I
right?
think you could pretty
Oh, yeah.
easily. Okay.
But
so,
would I be happy with my list? No, I can't have that car.
what's the best car on your list, in your
See,
opinion?
That's the hard one.
Okay. Well,
So my top 3,
There you go.
I'm going to tell you, are Toyota 4Runner SR5 Premium.
okay.
That one my wife and I bought new. She drove it for a year. I took it over. I loved that vehicle. It was a 2020. You know, probably was stupid to get rid of it, but I had other vehicles I wanted.
Yep.
So my next one, I would say, was the 2020 Tundra. Absolutely love that truck, the blue one that
Yeah.
I brought out to the track 2 years ago.
Yep.
Fucking love that truck. I love the way it drove. It was, I think, a good looking truck. It did everything I really wanted it to do. The third one is the 2018 Ford F-250 I'm driving now. I think that thing is fantastic.
Yeah.
Hooking the trailer up to and towing it places, right? And,
Yep.
and having that option. I couldn't have done that in any of my other vehicles.
Sure.
So,
I can't believe the Porsche wasn't on that list. Didn't make the top 3.
no. Not even my top 3.
Yeah.
But it never ran.
I
Yeah,
know. I was
that's-
kind of joking there.
Yeah, it never ran.
Actually, it did before it
ran.
got to you.
We
It
got
ran
it. We got it to fire up.
Yeah,
It pissed
yeah.
on my floor.
It ran
Yeah.
in the garage. It leaked oil everywhere.
Yeah. But before
and went up the river.
before it got to Jeremy, the previous one, I know I was there the day and it drove. You know.
So, out of those 3, if I had to get rid of one, oh God, like I said, it's a hard one. I would say that if the Toyota 4Runner was the one to go, I would be happier with my list.
Gotcha.
If the Ford F-250 went, I don't think I'd be happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Grant's still writing his list.
I mean, it's starting like for owned.
yes.
You know, mine's pretty short. But in terms of driven,
Yeah.
So
I'm realizing no, mine's pretty long with gears around.
give us
Yeah.
that number,
For what?
the owned.
Owned has been 1, 2, 3, 4.
He ran out of fingers. Damn it.
For running and driving, it's 4. 4.
And 6 with the 2 that don't run and drive.
No, that's 7.
7.
7.
Well, I was counting both the Fiats as one because
okay.
really there's just one that could
Yeah.
Yeah.
run there.
No, exactly. Mine, I would not be happy. If I had to get rid of the worst one and the best one,
Yeah.
I would
You're
not.
stuck with stuff that's like, oh.
So you'd be stuck with, you wouldn't have a
So,
Mustang because that's probably
Let me
your
go through
best.
the 5, and I bet you I'm missing one. But it's a 97 Explorer, which wasn't my first one. A 2000 Explorer, which was my first car.
Okay.
A 2005 Ford Excursion, and then Liger, my 2007 Ford Mustang GT.
Yeah.
You know.
Lamborghini and a Fiat.
Lamborghini, and then a Fiat, and another Fiat. You know.
Yeah.
So, worst one.
Because one of those would
Lambo.
be the worst.
I mean,
Well,
I would say
I
Lambo.
know.
the technicality was if it's running,
Yeah.
would it be your
So-
worst car?
And that, so let's just say down those 4. And my thing is, the Explorer, the 2000 one, would be a tough one because if I didn't have Liger, I don't know if I'd be happy with that. As a daily driver, yes, I love that truck. You know, that truck, for example.
Everybody knows you're a weirdo.
So, and I've got reasons for that. So
I know.
this
We
truck
know you do.
specifically,
We know.
in my family, we own that from new. It went through 11 family members.
And
maybe
it's got
13.
It's got
400,000
sentimental,
miles.
It's
Yeah.
sentimental value.
But on top of that, like, I've driven the hell of it. I know almost every nut and bolt on that truck and of those Explorers. And this was the V6, not even the V8 4-liter. Still decent power onto that one. As a daily driver, it is so fun to drive. But if I'm to say as my performance driver, nothing compares to Liger on that. And I'm like, that's a car I couldn't live without. If I was getting rid of the worst one, would be the 97 Explorer. Why? It wasn't the
Is there a
overhead
truck
valve.
on that list?
Sorry, 5.
That's hilarious. You didn't even.
I'm
put
like,
this-
wait a minute. He
daily
forgot the
driver
red
on it.
truck.
Yeah.
That I don't know if that would be between the worst one and maybe the 97 Explorer for the new
You think so?
250.
No
Yeah.
way.
No.
I'm telling you, that's how much joy I've had from the other trucks.
Yeah.
Because the amount with the Excursion that I can do with that,
Let's-
know that, how to
I
fix
think-
it, run with it.
here's
ride
what I
it,
think.
tow with it.
I think that truck is giving you a bad taste because of the DEF fluid and having to take it back.
It's
so many
not
times.
just that. Here's the big thing: is I'm used to having with every truck except for that diesel out there. I'm not used to the turbo lag, and I'm not used to not having a high revving engine. I'm normally used
It's a
to just.
diesel, dude. It's not supposed to rev.
I know. Well, I'm saying if I want to push that thing to the limit,
Why would you push that?
Yeah. Why would
because the other cars and trucks I can.
It's not.
It's not
It's
meant
not.
to push.
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's meant to put your race car trailer behind and
Yeah,
tow it to
but
the track.
I just said for enjoyment. Would I enjoy that? No, because it's not as fun to say a
Okay.
97 Explorer that I could just toss around and
Yeah.
have the rear end kick out, or an Excursion that would just go, and have that V10 just howl.
Yeah, see, I get a different enjoyment out of my vehicles.
Yeah.
I like being able to turn the seat heater on in my truck and drive in when it's fucking cold out.
Yeah.
That gives me enjoyment.
Yeah.
On a hot day today, I got in the truck. It was probably 90 in the truck.
Okay.
I turned on the seat cooler.
Yeah.
It blew air up my butt all the way home.
Yeah.
That gave me enjoyment. Not necessarily the air up my butt.
Weirdo.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Just so our listeners' sake, they know that. So I might have only owned 5 cars. In terms of driving wise, I've got like over a page plus of cars I've written down that I've been behind the wheel intimately with, though.
Intimately.
See, and I didn't put any of those because, well, it wasn't on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably have another handful.
Yeah.
Another. There's probably another 20 cars I could put on here.
Yeah.
But as far as just this list, if I was going that way,
Mm-hmm.
I would still be missing out on the Corvette.
Mm-hmm. Rob, what about you?
Well, I just checked off all the ones on my list that I've owned. That is, wow, 27.
Nice.
The other 20-ish, 18-ish, were just either borrowed or rented or, I got to drive for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So my list, I separated it out into basically sport category versus utility category. Utility category, I've driven or owned rather many more. 17 of them. That leaves 10 on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of pickup trucks, F-250s, Rangers, Explorers, Escape, Edge, a couple of Dodges. My F-350s, I've had 2 of those. I've had 3 Dodges. A Ranger, an Aerostar. There's a winner.
Wow.
K5 Blazer. I loved that thing. My Bronco. So, GL Metro's on that side. It was a very utility vehicle.
I could believe that.
Yeah. Until the engine died.
Half of mine, pickup trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, more than half of mine.
10 of mine were pickup trucks.
Yeah.
Mine, in terms of driving wise, mine's between mostly sports cars and
driving
trucks. Like
wise.
it's about 50-50 split.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Putting the best, honestly, that's super hard. Like, my Corvette is probably my favorite. Well, how could it not be? It's my race car, right?
Right.
But
Well, here's the question to
A
ask.
couple of Camaros that I've owned.
I want to ask you: is that because it's still fresh in your head, or because I know you had
Nah, I
a
think it's-
370 before this?
Yeah, it's better than that.
You think so? Okay.
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
No, I think it's at the top of my list. There's nothing on here that is better than that car.
Would you ever get rid of it?
Not intentionally, no. No. But a couple of Camaros that I've had, really good memories in those cars. Not as good a performance as the Corvette, so, they're not at the top necessarily. Worst car? Yikes. Ford Aerostar or maybe the Geo Metro. Mazda Miata, VW Golf.
I'd say the Aerostar.
Yeah.
If I had to pick,
Yeah.
the Geo Metro
But
is fun to
very
drive.
utility though, right? Aerostar, you can put a lot of stuff in that thing.
Yeah, but
It was for work.
if you had them all, you would still have all your pickups and everything else.
Right. Yeah. Valid. So,
Unless you have the Aerostar for the shaggin' wagon, I think something else could take its place.
yeah. No, yeah, I think I wouldn't be so happy getting rid of that Corvette. I mean, I still have the 74, and I would have my Camaros, Nova. So there'd still be some fun stuff in there, but as far as sports car, I wouldn't be so happy.
Mm-hmm.
With the utility side, all the trucks and my Bronco and all that stuff, I'd be fine. I'm not sure which one of those I would be. My Bronco's probably the best out of those utilities. I mean, I like my F350 too. It's great.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But right now, I'm really liking the Bronco.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be pretty happy on a daily driver basis with what I would have left in my list. But
Okay.
I wouldn't be so happy on the race car side.
Yeah. So overall, would you then not be happy if that's what you had?
I mean, if I was forced into that situation, I'd be okay. Because I would have the Nissan still.
Okay.
I had a CRX, an SI for a while. That thing was fun. Volkswagen Scirocco.
That's a cool car.
Yeah, that was super fun.
Didn't you have two C7s? Can't you keep one?
Wow.
Technically, the other one's not in my name. It is in my garage, so possession is 9/10 of the law, right? So there's that caveat.
See, I didn't put my wife's car on here. I probably should have.
Yeah,
I didn't think about putting that one on there.
Sure.
On here though.
I forgot I could put that on
it
here.
counts.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway.
Lexus what?
The RC 350 F Sport.
Okay, thank you.
I would be happy with that. I could probably do that and be okay without the Corvette.
Yeah.
I didn't mention the two cars that I would toss out. So I had two Mazda 6s, a 91 and a 92. I would consider those to be the worst ones. We got those at auction.
Yeah.
And fun. We had a lot of fun in those cars. They were pieces of shit, and we took them out and beat the absolute piss out of them.
Yeah. That's the fun thing about a beater of
Yeah.
a car. You can just beat it up and you don't really care.
Well, we had to tow them home. We beat the absolute tar out of them, blew the radiator out in one, and they were 4-lug, and one of them only had 3 lugs, and we ended up shearing one of the 3 of the other lugs off, so we had to tow that one back up on a trailer. The other one, I think we just put a tie strap on it and towed it home that way. But yeah, I mean those would probably be the ones I'd huck.
Okay.
Okay, in your list, Rob.
Yep.
Did you mark down how many of them were brand new when you bought them?
Oof. I did not mark that down, but it'd be pretty easy to do because not very many were brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I've only bought maybe 4 or 5 brand new.
Okay.
And they would all be on the utility side, like
The Bronco.
pickup. Yeah, the Bronco. One of my Rangers, the Escape, the Edge, Explorer. Those were all brand new.
When did you buy a new Ranger? In the 2000s or the 90s?
That was in '93.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I have not purchased any of my sports cars brand new. Yeah.
Interesting.
Is there any you would have liked to?
Oof.
No.
No?
No.
Been like, I wish I had this car when it was new?
No.
Okay. What about you, Jeremy?
I have owned 3 brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I had an 03 Mitsubishi Lancer non-Evo 2-wheel drive that I bought brand new. That was my daily driver for, like almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 2020 Toyota Camry that had most of the bells and whistles that I bought brand new. Really liked that car. It was a little uncomfortable in the seats. And then the 2020 4Runner, I got it from my wife used, but we bought it brand new.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it on there. Other than that, everything else has been used.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you?
I've got one new one. Rest are all hand-me-downs.
Yep.
What about the Mustang?
Liger was bought, technically used, with 7,000 miles.
Okay.
So she was technically new, you know. I mean,
That's used.
yeah, 2 years old, 7,000 miles. So, but yeah,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So just the truck.
There's a truck's the only thing I bought that's been bought new.
Yeah. Okay.
You know? I mean the other vehicles I have been around where they were new.
Were they given to you new?
No,
Okay.
that's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
They were bought. The family bought 2 of them new, but they were not given to you new.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I wouldn't call those new.
Yeah.
All right. Move on to stuff that you've had the privilege to operate
Mm-hmm.
enough to get a really good feel for the vehicle.
Okay.
How many of those you got? And I know it was short notice, but
Yeah.
just off the top of your head.
4, 5. Let me count real fast. Jeremy, go.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I don't have that list.
Yeah.
Like I said, if I were to go back and like sit down and think about it a little bit longer, there's probably another 20 of them.
Oh, sure.
I would
yeah.
come up
Over
with-
over the years, we end up driving stuff just whether it's a rental car or just at random we had to drive somebody else's vehicle or
Liger.
when we're at the races we get to drive somebody else's car, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it happens, and it adds to your collection of experiences, which
Yeah.
is kind of fun. I guess, like I said, mine's around the 20, what did I say? Yeah, it's around the 20 mark, 18 or 20 of just other vehicles.
Interesting.
So in those, Grant,
Mm-hmm.
what's your favorite or the best vehicle that you have gotten to drive?
I think out of this list, it's a tie, 3 or 4 cars tied. So right now on this list I've had written, there's 43 cars and trucks. That's not including Super Duties I kind of just put in one category.
Okay.
Yeah, for driven.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all of them, and it's been my favorite to drive. Let's preface that.
Don't make it
Just spit it out.
complicated.
All right. Because this is going to sound really ridiculous.
It's going to be an Explorer, and everybody's going to be like
think
rolling their eyes because you're ridiculous.
The car that is close to number 1, it's in that top 4, is a 1994 Suzuki Sidekick manual. 4-door.
You are ridiculous. You realize this, right?
And let me be clear, there's Ferraris, Lamborghinis on here. That was definitely one of my favorite cars to drive. Had a 1.6 liter.
I got mine.
And that thing would scream to 8,000 RPM. It would, every time you money shot shifted it, it just felt like it was going to come apart and scream, and you would go nowhere. But man, it would try. And the fact that 4x4 go off road and would not get stuck, and you could put 4 people in there, and it just felt like kind of was coming apart, but it was always a damn experience and an adventure taking that. So that's one of them. Second one is probably on the same level in both of them, is either the 93 Super Performance Cobra my family owns, or the 94 348 Special TS. Each one is a very involved driving car. Each one, in order to get them to go fast. Not saying they can't go faster. I'm saying around the corner and really being engaged takes a lot of concentration.
And not loop it.
And every single time behind the wheel, it is a full-on, every sense is cranked to 11 because it has to be there to keep it where you want it to be. So those are, I can't choose which one's my favorite out of those two. I think out of all the cars, that's probably my top 3. Liger's 4, but she's always evolving. But she's not like every time I get into her, it's always a fun, exciting car. But like these cars I'm talking about will make me giddy and laugh. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. My dad had, and this is not my top one. My dad had a 1972 Honda, 2-door Honda car. It had a 600 motorcycle motor in it, and the top was cut off.
Okay.
That car was fun as shit to drive. I drove it up and down the alley every time he went to work. I was 13. That car was fun to drive. That one made my best friend Josh and I giggle like a couple of little schoolgirls when we drove it. Second one would probably be my mom's car that she had when I was in high school. She had a 1990 Cougar XR7 supercharged that was really fun to drive, and it was really easy to get to 120 miles an hour. That car was cool.
Very specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
that car was cool. I never took it over 120. But that car was really fun. It would do a 2-block burnout like nothing. It had gobs of power. And then I'd probably say my dad's 89 Ford F-150. It was one of the 3 trucks that I learned how to drive in. And really, it was the first truck that I drove from Longview to Tacoma on the freeway. It was with him, but it was the first time I had driven that far ever. I was 15 and a half. It was raining, and he's like, well, looks like you're driving home. So that was cool. It was a good experience.
Cool.
Right on.
I don't know. Well, most fun to drive. That's a tough one because I've got some pretty good cars on here.
Yeah.
I have to throw the McLaren in there, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
it is fun to drive. It's,
for real.
it's fun on the track. It's fun on the street.
It gets looks.
It gets looks. I mean, it's just a neat feeling to drive that car.
Yeah.
So that's definitely on the list. What the 2023 C8 Z06 is on the list. Porsche GT3. What else?
He's naming all the supercars. You think that would be on my list?
Yeah, well, I mean,
He's not ridiculous.
yeah, I don't pick Explorers as a fun car to drive.
Yeah.
Or Suzuki Sidekick.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean,
What? What's wrong with the Suzuki?
what's wrong with Explorer?
They're just fun.
Do you have a skewed perspective of fun?
I guess that, and that probably is because not each of us have very different answers on terms of what our most fun car
Right.
to drive is.
Right.
And I think this is what makes it most fascinating.
I think one of my cars was one of my most fun, too. I didn't even think of that. The first car I ever owned, my 83 Ford Ranger, that out of the 20 vehicles I've owned, that's the only one I cried over getting rid of.
Yeah.
Only one I've ever shed a tear for. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my Nissan was fun to drive after I did all the work to it. It was a great car.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like performance. That to me is fun. So, like my current Z06, I love driving that car.
Yeah, for sure.
Freaking love driving
Puts
that.
a smile on your face.
Honestly,
every time
I
you do it.
like driving that car better than the McLaren. I would choose that car over the McLaren every day.
Because you're more involved.
Maybe so. I had much more involvement in building the car, right,
Yeah.
and tuning it and doing all the things. But it's a more visceral experience too.
Yeah.
Like the McLaren is pretty point and shoot. It does a lot for you. It covers up a lot of sin in your driving, which can be fun, right? And things quick. I don't like the turbo lag. That's not my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, my Z06, God, I love driving that car.
Yeah.
So that's probably my pinnacle. That's my most favorite drive.
Okay.
There's an emotional attachment there, too.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. It's my favorite race car. out of the two that I've owned and many that I've worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite. I think it's a decent list of cars too. I want to continue to add to my driving experience cars. There's some cool stuff out there I want to experience, driving the C7, I was really surprised at how that car drove. I felt super detached in it, whereas then I get back in my C6 and I'm like, that feels planted. I know what the car is going to do. The C8 had a better feel to it as far as being connected to the car and kind of feeling what it's going to do before it does it.
Yeah.
Those are good feelings. The McLaren, it has a good feel. You can feel it. It's much better after we did work to it, to enhance the performance of it and that kind of stuff. In the stock trim, I didn't really care for its track manners. And I don't know. Cool. It's fun stuff. I definitely wouldn't pick an Explorer or a Ranger.
Yeah.
They're fine daily drivers. They're good utility vehicles. I don't mind driving them. I love driving my Bronco, honestly, but I wouldn't pick it as my most favorite. Out of the utility vehicles, it might be my favorite.
I think it's like I was saying, it's just because for me, the most enjoyment I get is pushing things limit. They shouldn't be doing that. And it's fun going that way. If we're talking about pure performance-wise, I've got a few on here that, we've talked about the 458, for example, I've driven. It's fun, but it's only fun at over 100 miles an hour because that's when the car feels really connected and going through. If I'm just driving around, whopping through gears, not going crazy, a 430, having the top down, Ferrari is a great example. But I'd rather have the 348, the older one, because even though it's slower, you're rolling through gears. You have no power steering. You're feeling it more. To get it to keep up with cars of that, like an Aventador, or keep up with, an R8 or whatever, you got to get that much more edge. And I get more enjoyment about being involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah.
I like the involvement of it too. Don't get me wrong. I will drive an exotic every day I get a chance, right? Yeah. Somebody hands me the keys to a 488 or a Lamborghini or something. Heck yeah, I'm going to drive it.
Yeah.
I want that experience. I want to know what it feels like. I do think that, excuse me, some of them are very disconnected, paddle shifting and all the bells and whistles and the nannies and I've discovered that I like the more connected feel of do it yourself. Let's turn all the nannies off and see what this thing will do. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of fun.
So I got a question.
Yep.
On that list, give me one or two cars that you would do something to, like project-wise.
Okay, that's a good one.
What is it?
Okay. Right off the top of that would be 72 Camaro.
Okay.
That would be a restoration project.
Total restoration.
Yeah.
All the way down.
It was a
frame, and
when I owned it, it was in very good condition. It had a few dings and stuff on it, but it had a decent spray. It wasn't a great paint job, but somebody had painted it before I got it. There was no rust. It was a good driving car. But yeah, that would be a fun project. If I could have it how I had it when I sold it, it wouldn't take much. But that would be fun. That would be good restoration.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking through this list and I'm trying to debate on because we've done our challenges and some of the cars on here aren't like at one point I rented a Camaro and drove like 1,000 miles in that, so I'm used to that. I think a fun one if it was a project, I've got on here a smart car. I think that would be a fun project. Either engine swapping it with a Hayabusa motor or changing it to a Safari Land off-roader one.
Think of ones you've owned.
Oh, ones I've owned?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be the Explorer.
Okay.
Yeah, and just make a Jurassic... Like, the 97 Explorer was going to originally be a Jurassic Park one before I sold it.
I am sure of that.
Yeah.
I have two.
Okay.
One would be my 83 Ford Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
I would totally turn that into a Baja truck now. I think that would be really fun. Yeah. It's a two-wheel drive. That is the only vehicle I've actually jumped 3 feet off the ground.
Man, that had to be hard landing.
It actually was relatively easy and smooth.
Really?
Yeah, and it hit all 4 tires at the same time when I landed.
Probably lucky that it did.
Yeah, and my buddy came running down. We had a 4-wheeler in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
My buddy came running down when we landed, and he goes, "That was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life." And then we rode the 4-wheeler around for a couple hours, loaded it back up, and left.
That's funny.
And then, so that I would probably look into turning into a Baja for down in Arizona.
Yeah.
The other one, my second vehicle, actually, I had an 86 2-wheel drive short box, standard cab, Chevy 2-wheel drive with a 350, just a 1500.
Yeah.
That truck lowered with a badass stereo and a hard tonneau cover with the speaker box in the back cut out to the cab would be so freaking cool. I would totally do that.
Yeah.
Just a lowered, it'd be the only thing I've ever owned that was lowered, and it was kind of lowered. I had 12.5-inch wide tires on it, and they were low profile and on nice wheels.
Yeah.
And so that's what it looked like when I bought it. I would go a little bit lower and lower profile tire.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had that kind of reminded me, I had a K5 Blazer, an 85 K5 Blazer.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
I really like that truck. Something about that body style, and I just like the Blazers a lot. That one would be a great one to kind of restore. It was a bit rough. It had some patched rust spots on it, that were just like sanded down and sprayed over just to keep them from getting worse. And interior was so.
Did those look
But I
much
love
different than
driving
the
that thing.
70s K5s?
Not much, no.
Not much? Okay.
No. Like a different grill and headlight
And that's
combination, and pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I would own another one of those in a heartbeat. Those things are cool.
Yeah. I bet you that had the same grill as my truck.
It had a fairly open grill from what I recall, and I can't remember if it had the round or the square headlights. I think it
Mine
had
was
the square
square.
ones.
Okay.
85, I think it had square.
Yeah, mine was 86 and it was square headlights.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And I think the hood shape and stuff like that was probably the
had to be
same.
pretty close, yeah.
I love that truck, man. It was
Yep.
fast.
Mine wasn't particularly fast. It was lifted 35s, just the standard 350. But I don't know. I just liked driving it. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, mine was 350, and like I said, it was manual transmission too.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Mine was automatic.
It was a 4-speed, but first gear was granny low.
Sure, yeah.
So like I could tow a boat, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Behind it, and in 4th gear, it was fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could get on the freeway and pedal that thing.
You know what gearing it had in it? Was it 373s or?
I never looked into it actually, so I'm not sure. I do know it would do over 100 miles an hour, and there was a lot of pedal left.
Oh, it had highway gears in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fast.
How about you?
For a project?
Yeah.
I thought we just talked about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
did
did.
you? I was reading.
Yeah,
because I was
he
gonna
said
say-
Jurassic.
Of course you did.
Well,
I don't
'cause
want
you
to hear
said
it.
for what I owned, I said that, but I was to say for driving,
I'm glad I wasn't-
car.
Yeah.
I want.
So what would you do with the smart car?
That's why I already said that. I'd either put a engine swap in it, and make it like a really fast small car, or I'd do a Safari Land over because
The Safari might be.
yeah, a lot of people have been doing it around Portland area because there's a local guy who has a whole company,
Yeah.
a big company that does conversions for lifting them and putting bigger tires and all
How
sorts.
much is that?
Not much. I think it's like $7,000, $5,000.
Way too much. Way
That's how much
too
it costs to do the upgrade?
Yeah, like for bigger tire suspension, like the whole thing. What?
That's a lot of money
Yeah, it is. It's
for a
ridiculous.
shitty little car.
I
Sorry, David.
I don't think. Hang on, I'm probably not doing it justice for how much it's done to it though, because you're not looking at a traditional smart car anymore. It really changes. It's like going from say like a 911 to a 911 Safari. It's not slapping bigger wheels onto it. You're getting a lot more skid pads and travel suspension.
It's still a piece of shit.
Anyways,
I would have considered it before he said it was 7,000.
yeah, I think.
You need to do some research.
As I said, I think
If it's more than 1,500, it's too much.
I
yeah.
know. Yeah, you could spend that in tires.
So a lot of cars on the list, I feel like we've talked about a lot on the podcast. Do you guys have any stories on cars you've driven that we haven't really talked about on the podcast?
Before we go there, I wanted to one more thing about the list.
Okay.
What's your worst car? What's your worst one on the list? I mean, we kind of covered that, just getting rid of our best and our worst, but like there's a few. Like I had a GL Metro, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
50 miles a gallon is the only reason I had the thing. Bought it off a neighbor, actually traded it off of a neighbor, and I commuted to work for, I don't know, maybe a better part of a year before it lost a cylinder, and I gave it away.
Is a Geo Metro the same as Geo Tracker?
No.
No, Metro was a little
Tracker is
hatchback, 3-cylinder hatchback. It was actually a 5-speed, too.
And the Tracker was a little SUV.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what's actually the worst on here. I mean, the one that comes to mind, I know is going to piss a lot of people off and be like, what? And I'm trying to figure out something that's not that. Jeremy, go while I look.
So my worst driving car, I would say, was my Honda CRX.
I loved my CRX.
Mine was an HF, 91
yeah,
HF.
yeah.
Had an exhaust on it, so basically got rid of all the bottom end horsepower.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quick. It wasn't really fast.
It wasn't, no.
It got fantastic fuel mileage. I think I got like 35, 38 miles to the gallon in that thing.
I don't doubt it.
And it did fantastic in the snow. Like, probably top 3 vehicles in the snow.
I remember mine being really good in the snow, too.
Yeah.
But
front wheel drive, all the weights up
Yeah.
front. Man, and no weight to the car.
Right.
Like, I got stopped on a hill in Federal Way, and I watched cars around me, like, trying to take off going up this hill after the light turned green, and one of these, it was a van, front wheel drive, started spinning. It went up onto the curb. Another car went and slid off the other side of the road, and I was watching this, and then I put my car in first gear, and I drove right up the hill like it was no big deal. And I didn't have snow tires. I didn't have chains or anything like that. It gripped the road that good.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's probably, even though probably one of the worst ones, besides the two Mazdas.
Yeah.
I mean, those things were absolute garbage, but we
Sure.
bought them to beat the hell out of them. And I got those for $250 for the pair.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
most interesting thing I've owned? Probably my 1977 Dodge Jamboree motorhome.
Okay.
My buddy Josh and a couple other guys and I we would jump in it and drive it to parties in Longview.
Yeah, there you go.
And we watched cops show up to almost every one of these parties. Mm-hmm. We'd be sitting in the motorhome drinking beer.
Watching them go.
They'd walk right
I'd
by,
know.
didn't even look at the motorhome.
What kid drives a motorhome, exactly?
Yeah, we'd be shit canned in the motorhome watching them walk by.
As long as you're just staying there.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you? Worst?
So as we've been talking, the list has grown to about 60, almost 70 cars.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still just keeping like, oh yeah, I forgot about I drove that and that and that. With that being said, there's two that come to mind. And mind you, on this list so far, there's the new gen VW Bug. There is a Geo Tracker on here. We've got
So the two that he's thinking about is
worse than that. Maserati Ghibli is on there.
97 Explorer and the 2000 Explorer.
And he's also never owned any of these other vehicles.
These are all ones
Right.
I've driven and good amount of miles on and stuff, because I've driven a lot of things people give me. So the two that come to mind, the first one is a
Ford Focus.
no, it's a 2000 and
I
I
had
forgot
one
I
of
got
those
to put
too.
that on there. Yeah, that's
Me
another
too. I had
Yeah.
one of those.
one. Ford, Focus, ST, and normal SE. Okay.
Sorry, Antonio.
That being said, with a somewhere in the mid early 2000s, I don't know what year my friend had, was a Nissan 350Z.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that's one of the worst cars is because he built it into a drift car.
I forgot to put the Jetta on there.
And so
But
why that was
purpose built.
it was purpose built, but he drove on the street. And that thing was a nightmare because every time you go around the corner, the whole back end would shake. It wouldn't want to
Because
drift.
it wanted to slide.
Yeah. And that that car right there made it so as a street car, what that did for me was like, I am never building a car that is this focus built that it can't be on the street. If you're building a street car, it needs to do both.
Yeah,
And that
agree. Yeah, I would
cemented
agree
it
with
for
that.
me.
I see guys do that too.
Yeah.
They go all in on the drift build or the race build or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they street drive it. I'm like, no, man, it's not as cool as you think that is.
So that was one of the worst. The other one that's on here, which is going to piss a lot of people off, confuse a lot of people, and it's not the 4-cylinder. This is the 8-cylinder.
Okay.
Like 2019 Ford Mustang GT.
So why is that going to piss people off?
Because that's one of the worst cars on my list.
The 2018 Ford Mustang GT, which motor did it have?
The 5.0, the 3rd gen. So
Okay, so why?
So why? And I will say I have even the EcoBoost on here, and I enjoyed that more than the V8.
Okay.
As a stock car without modification onto it, I didn't like. It had a lot of horsepower. Didn't have the best of handling. It did everything all right. It didn't do everything spectacular. It wasn't even the performance package. Now, if it was the performance package, great. Being a rental with, the 255s on it, I think on front with that much power.
So it was a rental?
It was a rental, and I put 1,000 miles on that.
And it was
one.
bone stock?
It was bone stock.
Okay.
But it still had the
Are you-
460 horses engine.
Are you comparing it to your Mustang?
I've got a
completely built?
GT350 on here. I've got a GT350R. I've got loads of other Mustangs on here. I've got a Fox body. The problem with this Mustang is every other Mustang on the list, like say for example, I have a GT500 on here. Okay, that of a 2007. That car, its purpose was to go fast a straight line. You push the gas and the back tires would bust, and it was a manual. It drove through the gears. On the Mustang. The S550 Mustang, the rental car, it's an automatic. Can't even roll through gears. You have the paddle shifters on it too. So everything it did was it was okay. If I had owned that and upgraded it, that probably would have been an amazing car because I could do whatever I want and figure all the kinks and whatever.
Right.
But having it be...
And that's where I was going with
Yeah.
asking you, are you comparing it to your car?
Well,
You didn't start with it was automatic because I would have agreed with you right off
Yeah.
the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I get it too, and I get where your comparison comes from. Like, it's at that point just a car. It's really basic. It's a rental. Granted, it's the 5-liter, and it would be cool if it was you could get a rental that was actually fun.
Yeah.
But that automatic sure takes some
to give that
steam
comparison
out of it, doesn't it?
To give a comparison, I've driven a 2018 or 19 Camaro with the LS motor and a S model.
I have one of those on my list as well.
That one I actually enjoyed. In fact, when I've driven all 3 of the pony cars of the same generation, and of those 3 cars, my number 1 was the Camaro. I've told myself the time
Was it automatic?
It was an automatic too.
Yeah.
I told myself if I was getting rid of Liger for any reason, I had to buy a new pony car. It wouldn't be a new Mustang. Maybe the Challenger. I've got my own problems with that, but the Camaro really stuck out to me and that car was a rental. I put another 1,000 miles on that one.
Would
that
you
was fun.
buy that car as an automatic or a manual?
Manual. But I'm saying is if out of all automatic cars, out of all rentals of stock and nothing fancy, the most fun was the Camaro and the most livable was that one. The Mustang just did everything okay or didn't do it great at all.
Why was that about the Camaro? What was it that set it apart?
I think it's because it had a little bit bigger tires, more grippiness to it. The power, it had power when it was there. With the Mustang,
Responsiveness.
responsive was a big thing. The Mustang, it would be...
Was that one an LS?
That was an LS, 455 horses. The Mustang was... It had power. I had it at one point where I was like, okay, going around a corner, giving it a little bit of gas, not traction off on Sport Plus mode. Because it goes Sport Plus mode, race, whatever. Decided to go from Sport to Sport Plus. When you're in Sport mode, it will not allow you to accelerate around the corner no matter what. At all.
That's sporty.
Yeah. Sport Plus mode would allow you to do that and made it more drivable. The moment you go to race mode, the problem was the throttle response on that I felt was going around the corner, it would be, you could feather it, but it would be just way more power than you would expect it to be.
It's twitchy. They probably just had one of those
It would be like
race boxes on it that
yeah.
you press it a quarter of the way and it says, well, that's, 3/8 throttle instead of
Yeah.
quarter, so they're just giving you more input, which is ridiculous.
Sport plus mode, you could feather and get everything else.
Yeah.
Go to race mode, it felt like when you pushed the pedal and feathered it was like full throttle.
Yeah.
It wanted to go. And I had a situation a couple where I'd be going around the corner, and I was like, this is how all those Mustang guys crash. I was able to control it and go through. I'm like,
Probably.
okay. But compared to the Camaro, it was more civilized.
Yeah.
It did what you wanted to. I like the interior. It's more comfortable and more laid out and just easier to see. The hood was easier to look over. But around the corners, it was definitely more engaging. It was more responsive, louder, V8, it sounded like. A lot of things I liked on that one. Again, rentals from stock to stock for pony cars, though. And this can even go with any of my list on here. I mean, hell, I've got an Audi A6 on here. What made that fun? The Triptronic on there when it was new and going through and having a all-wheel drive on it and throwing that around. It had a purpose. This Mustang just it was okay, and that's why it's low on my list, if not the worst. But
I don't blame you at all. I've never been super impressed with Mustangs. They feel a little sluggish.
Yeah.
And heavy.
Yeah.
And wallowy.
Yep.
I have a Challenger, an 18 Challenger that I got to drive.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoyed it, even though they are a big, heavy car.
Yeah.
The thing was, it drove really nice.
Yeah.
I can see why people like to drive it, especially as like your get around town daily car. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's got some wallop to it too.
They do, yeah. And the same, I also have an 18 Camaro on here. That was an enjoyable drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. I have driven also a EcoBoost Mustang, and why that for me was more enjoyable than the S550 V8, the 5.0, it was because stock to stock, to get the 3-cylinder to go fast in a corner or just fast at all, you really had to work for it. And that's what made that fun.
The 3-cylinder?
Sorry, the 4-cylinder.
It's an
The
EcoBoost
EcoBoost.
4? It's not a 6?
No, they got rid of the 6 in 2017 was the last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, the EcoBoost still makes 330 horses from that. And again, heavy car, blah, blah, but that was more fun and enjoyable with that one. But, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What was the other thought you had?
The other thought I was going to say was, so of all the cars you've had on your list, and we've talked about, throughout our show, throughout all 49 episodes, different stories with them, what's some of the ones on the list that you haven't talked about on the show or you have a good story behind?
Wow.
I didn't put this one on my list,
Mm-hmm.
but I went and test drove a hatchback 09 WRX,
Okay.
and Mariah was with me.
Mm-hmm.
I let her drive it first, and the sales guy came with us.
Mm-hmm.
It was his first day on the job.
Okay.
So Mariah drove it down the freeway, turned around on an overpass, pulled over, let me take over.
Mm-hmm.
She pulled off on the off-ramp to the overpass. So I pulled around the overpass, and I was getting ready to get back on the freeway. Before I came around the corner to get onto the on-ramp, I was at 60 miles an hour trying to get that car sideways. By the time I got on the freeway, I was doing 120 miles an hour, and that dude's fingernails were in the seat.
Oh, I bet.
And then I started to slow down. But we probably did the rest of that drive at about 95, 100 miles an hour. And when we pulled in, I didn't buy the car because I said I probably would kill myself in it. Mm-hmm. We ended up with a Mazda 2012 or 2010 Mazda 6 that I ended up really liking also, except that it didn't have cruise control for some reason. That guy is still friends with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just because you didn't kill him.
Yeah.
Probably. I scared the absolute shit out of him, and he's like, to this day, that was still the only test drive that has ever fucking scared him.
Oh my gosh.
Most people are more civilized than that.
Yeah, I was not. I wanted to know what the car could do.
Okay, all along the lines of cars I've driven and stupid teenage stories.
Oh gosh.
So, I think I was 18. We were having a family reunion thing at my house down in Eugene area, and my uncle shows up with a brand new Toyota Supra turbo. You know, the twin turbo of that era, with the T-tops or whatever it had. I don't know. It seemed like it had a removable top of some kind.
Yeah.
It was either a T-top or a Targa top.
I think it was a
Targa goes all the way across.
Yeah, it's a Targa.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't remember if I asked if I could drive it or if he just offered, but anyway, I ended up driving his car, and just me and a friend of mine, teenagers. This was dumb, right? So I was like, all right, yeah, I get to drive it. Took it around town a little bit, out on the backcountry roads. Tested the limits, we'll say, a little bit. Someplace that I owned a Camaro at the time, so I kind of knew the roads and where I could go faster.
Give her some.
Yeah, give her some. Anyway, get back to the house, park the car. I'm getting him back the keys, and my dad's right there, and he looks at me, he's like, how fast? And I just kind of tight-lipped it, you know. He's like, no, I know you did it. How fast? I'm like, 135. He's like, it's sweet, right? Like, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
I really thought my dad was going to have a conniption fit, but he did not. He just let it ride. So I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, 18-year-old kids shouldn't be doing that shit, but I guess they knew better because they were 18 once.
Yeah.
God, I got another funny story. My dad told my father one time that I sucked at backing up, and I think I was 15 and a half. I just got my learner's permit. They both had 89 Ford pickups. One of them was two-wheel drive and had a camper canopy on it. The other one was four-wheel drive and did not have a camper or canopy on it, right? So my father, Mitch, took me out to a logging road. We drove all the way to the end of it. This logging road had drop-offs on both sides. Okay?
Both sides?
No.
Yeah,
no.
All quarter mile straight out to the end of it. It's dug out. There's no turnaround spot. He goes, fuck, I guess you're going to have to back out. He made me do that 3 times until I got it right, backing up with my mirrors.
Yeah.
That's funny.
By
It's good practice.
now, no problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Learned your lesson.
Yep.
Yep.
Back out. You have to be straight.
Yeah.
Straight out at all 3
I'm sure we're in for a ride on this one.
Which one?
You.
whatever your next thing is.
I'm gonna try not to go too crazy
Good.
on here.
Good.
You know, I want to save the electric cars for
Okay,
later
so
down.
let's
I'm
move
saving
on.
those for later because we're gonna talk about those.
No, we're not. No, not today.
All right. So the one I wanted to bring up though, other than the electric cars, so that's a whole different experience. That's funny.
That's a whole different podcast.
I know, right?
Not this one.
Not this one.
I was at a BCA event a few years ago, and was doing fairly well with Liger. I think top 7 of the day in class. It took first of cam class, something like that. Having fun, whatever. There was another competitor who had just bought, and within
Botanist.
Purchased?
purchased. Thank you. He had just got back from the military
late.
and purchased a 2018 wide body Hellcat manual 6-speed Challenger. Right, bought a track. He put about 1,500. His brother-in-law was there. And he raced fairly with us at the track.
Where was this event?
This is at Shelton.
I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking
I
about?
do. Go ahead.
Okay. So this guy came up to me, and they were wondering how I was able to put such fast times down because I was consistently faster than them all day. He's like, I got 707 horses. I don't get and bigger tires. How are you more faster than me? And I'm like, I don't know, just how to build a Mustang. I'm like, what's your best time? I think it was like 56 seconds, something like that, right? And he was asking me advice. I said, well, he's like, I can't get any power out of this thing. You push it and the back end goes loose. And then I go, well, that's your thing is you can get better times if you just full throttle it right at the end and bust the back end loose to turn around. It's so heavy, it's not going to turn around on its own. Oh, you can't do that. I don't do that. I'm like, okay. So they go, well, you show us how to drive it? I'm like, okay. And so he throws me into it. I take a friend of mine with it. They put on the Tektronix so they can record what's going on. And I take off. First time ever in that car, do a really good lap putting it through. I actually got to go twice in it because the first one was just to learn the car. Second one, like, let me put a hot lap down. In my warm-up lap, I was 2.5 seconds faster than his fastest time in the entire day. And on my second lap was like 4 seconds faster than him in the entire day. And he's like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I told you just got it. Like, just line it straight. When you finally have a straight line, push the throttle. There's a lot more there. When you're around the corners, get the back end to kick out because it's a boat. It's going to want to push. You got to make it wrap, you know?
It's definitely a boat.
Yeah.
Car's
It was
super heavy.
fun. And row through those gears on a Challenger, that's different, especially...
Is it automatic?
No, it's a 6-speed manual rowing through the gears.
Interesting.
You know, yeah, that was a heck of an experience.
That car has modes too. You can put it in the lower power mode, which was like 450 horsepower or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him and I said, dude, honestly, you've never done this before. You should have this thing in the lower power mode to learn how to drive this car.
Yep.
Oh, that made him so mad.
Yep.
But it's true.
It's true.
It would have done so much better.
I think that was one of the suggestions I told him going through that,
Yeah.
and I said, if you keep it at 700, then you got to use that power.
Yeah.
So he's the guy at the track you hear say, oh man, I'm going to build that car before I bring it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why? Learn it before you do anything
Yeah.
to it.
Well, I feel like he was there to learn to have fun.
He was there to have fun,
His brother-in-law was the competitive one. He's like, why aren't we going faster? What's going on with this? I'm trying to remember who it was. And
They were a little upset that their car had so much power and that they really weren't competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when Liger at the time had only
Probably would've
barely
been
300
faster.
horses.
He probably would have been faster if he'd have dropped it to 400 horse.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he could have put more
More input. Without
more
breaking
input
it.
down. Yeah.
You know?
Okay. We're running really long. So here's what I would like to do.
Okay.
We're going to save this for the next episode.
Okay.
It might allow us to do a little bit of research on this too. So for the listener, this is new technologies being used to restore cars, making restorations easier, better, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to push that to next week.
Okay.
Right now, I wanted to know if you guys looked up any project cars for sale.
I
this
did not.
week.
The only thing I looked up today or this week was the boat.
Okay. Sir Counterlot over
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Did you do any project cars this week? Did you look any up?
I feel like I did. I think I sent them to you.
No.
The
No,
answer
I
is
did
yes
not.
or no.
All right. So that concludes today's episode. Thanks everybody for playing along.
Did you remember that dad joke?
It's in there somewhere. No, I don't know. We'll cut and paste something. Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, share it with your friends. Hit follow on the podcast. Hit follow on the social medias.
If you
We
guys,
are probably going to do another car challenge. I think we'll roll that out next week, and then we'll have 2 or 3 weeks before we actually do the challenge or have it on air. So we'll put the rules out. We'll do it early in the episode. If anybody's interested, you can email your challenge to us at untitledcarproject@gmail.com.
yeah.
And we'll have a little bit of fun with that. It'll be different. Grant's got a severe advantage with his $5,000 left over from the last challenge.
Boy.
I got almost $3,000 left.
I got $50.
Yeah.
I got a whole $50.
Why am I scared?
And I had a
Somehow I'm going to make this work for me.
and I had a pretty good build.
See, the
So
thing
I'm
is, it could be
happy with it.
$5,000 extra dollars in the imagination of Grant.
Ugh.
Oh, we're gonna have
I am-
some
It
kind
scares
of Batmobile.
everybody.
Fucking terrified.
You know how many rules I'm going to have to put in place to try
I
to
know,
keep him in
right?
check? It's absolutely
So-
absurd.
You'll still figure out a way.
I know.
Yeah. I wanted to say for our listeners, if you enjoyed listening to our talks about whether it was machinery and talking about our list of cars that we drove, if you've got any experience in any of those topics that we talked about today, we'd love to hear about
Yes.
them. Email us at untitledcarproject@gmail.com.
If you're an engine builder, I would like to talk to you on the show.
Yeah. Either
I would
in person or over the phone. We'd love
Yeah.
to hear from you and
Either way.
hear some of the experiences.
Phone interviews are very easy to set up. So if you're interested, I'd love to hear from you.
And lastly, if you've got a very cool car story of anything you've owned or driven or an experience, let us know. Either tag us on Instagram or Facebook at Untitled Car Project, or use hashtag Untitled Car Project, or email us and give us a
Email would be
detailed
the best.
Email us and give us a detailed story. We'd love to hear about it.
Yep.
I want to talk to somebody who has a badass motorcycle build.
Okay,
We haven't had one of those yet.
we can get someone on there for that.
What would you consider? Are we talking street, dirt? What are we talking?
Whatever.
Because I've done
Street
some restorations on those.
Nice.
I don't have any currently, but, I've done a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work too. A good motorcycle build. We've
Yeah.
not highlighted anything like that.
Yeah, and lastly, before we go, I wanted to let our listeners know that we are getting close to the summertime. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, we're going to be going to a lot more events, a lot more races. Make sure if you see one of us there, come up and say hi. We want to talk to you. We want to hear from our listeners. As well as if you got any events you recommend for us to go check out, do not hesitate. Let us know. We want to go on our weekends and go see them.
Yes, absolutely. So, with that, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging in there. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Later.